It's Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. World of outlaw trucks, giant tires, rolling over shit and killing people.
So my buddy got married in a big park in Wheatland when the fair was going on, and his wedding was on Sunday. And literally in the background, you could hear a dude like, "There's a Ford John Deere tractor, Sunday," and I laughed.
Good morning, everybody. Hi, Tina. Hi, Carol. Oops,
What do
excuse
you
me.
got, boy?
Mark's babysitting. Hi, Diana. Good morning. I told Mike we'd talk just a little bit about horse trailers today.
What's your feet, bud?
I think Diana's trying to say she's sleepy this morning. Good morning. I don't know. Brenda says E41 Tam. Good morning, E41 Tam. You need to shut your door, please. Okay.
E41 Tam. Where are you off to, buddy?
Fire.
Really?
Fire.
I think you said fire. Come on.
It's fire.
Yep, there's fire.
Oh, that is what he said.
It's fire.
There's a little fire in there. Yeah, it's a candle.
It's fire.
Fire burns you.
Hot. Burn, baby.
Fire.
Yep, we see it.
That's what Brenda used to tell the girls at some point. Somewhere along the way, she started saying that. And then after that, we've said it ever since. But, you know.
Burn the baby.
Burn the baby. Don't touch that. It'll burn the baby. And I guess Jen or Kelly one said that too. And that's where maybe that's where we got it. Brenda, you want to join in on this conversation?
It was on that. It was, I think it's actually a line from that movie with Tom Cruise and Dustin Hoffman.
They were in a movie together?
Yeah, what was that movie, babe, that Dustin Hoffman and Tom Cruise were in? Rain Man.
Oh, Rain Man. Oh, okay. I don't remember that. Maybe that is where it came from. They probably stole it from us.
They probably did. I'm gonna put a little fire out and then we'll be back.
Diana says she's sleepy and Mike's still sleeping. Oh, okay. We can talk about him. Let's talk about him and his stupid car.
It's all gone now.
Somebody was trying to explain something to him last night, and I thought, well, why does Mike not understand that? Because he was a stupid car man. Tina said Rain Man, and Carol said Rain Man, so you must be right.
Well, my wife was right, I'm sure.
Oh, well, yeah, that too. Zippity doo. I thought you said it. You're right. Your wife said it. Zippity doo, Doug. Welcome in, sir. Good morning. Zippity doo, Doug. Zippity day. Yay or A or something.
My, oh my, what a wonderful
day. Or what a wonderful something. Is it day?
Plenty of sunshine heading my way. Zippity doo dong. Zippity a.
Oh, Tina's sleepy too.
Fire's gone, buddy.
Mark's having to put out a fire. Apparently they had a candle lit.
Fire's gone.
And the yonker is caught on to that whole thing.
He's gone full on Rain Man on me, and it was 576,927 toothpicks. 576. It's gone. No more fire.
Gone. But fire good. You cook meat. I've never seen your feet though.
He's all camoed out this morning.
Oh,
He's ready. He's ready to go skulk about outside.
so is Sammy there? Or is he gone? So he gone?
No, he dumped him and left. Dumped him, grabbed a horse, and left.
As Mammy would say on Mrs. Brown's Boys, oh, the bastard. No offense, Sammy. Just put a screwdriver in his. Oh, ouch! That's not good, Doug. Don't do that.
Holy.
I'm
Like
gonna
into your hand, Doug?
That's what I'm assuming that means too. And broke skin. That is not what they're for.
But they occasionally do that.
Yeah, well, that's true. I've done it, but doesn't mean I'm gonna, and I don't want mean I'm gonna encourage other people to do it. And Diana says, "Why?" That's a good question, Diana. Why, Doug? Why?
Needed an adjustment.
Maybe it makes sense. Yeah, maybe he has been taken into the Borg. Oh, he's trying to get out a strip screw. Oh, well, that probably explains a lot.
Yeah.
You might have to drill the head off of it and then take your vice grips when you take it apart where you can get a hold of the screw shaft. I don't know what you're dealing with. I don't have any screws like that in my hand, but if I did. They didn't even put anything like that in my back. I was trying to think of it, but they didn't have to. So now Brenda, on the other hand, she might have some screws in her leg. I could stick a screwdriver in her leg and see if it hurt and see if I can get the screws out.
I used to have some stuff in my knee that would set off the metal detector at the airport.
Okay.
But it was splitting mall wedge fragments.
Oh,
and they're gone now. They must be because they don't set it off anymore.
So that wasn't something that was surgically put in there to help your knee.
No, it was put in there by me. You know how those metal wedges mushroom out in the edge?
Yeah.
And the edge comes off when you hit it just right.
Yeah.
And it goes, it literally sounds like a ricocheting 22 cap bullet.
Oh, and they'll go right into your leg, huh?
And they'll go right in there. Zip.
Tina says, first off, she said, oh, wait a minute. This is why you shouldn't do manual. I shouldn't do manual labor, Doug said. And then Tina said she shouldn't do that. And then somebody else, Brenda said, go ahead and try that, Tim. I'll let you know what will happen. Diana said, use a rubber band in the screw head. Oh, that might be enough to get some traction. I would not suggest you do that, Tim Strong. Yeah, she's already pointed that out, Tina. I think probably that's good advice. But if I was feeling real froggy, I could try it. Just see what, because if I hit her hard enough, or if I get it in there right, she won't be able to get up and chase me anyway. Not that I could. Wait a minute, let me back up. That's not a good idea either, because I can't run away. That's stupid. All she has to have is something long enough to reach me. Because I'll probably be sitting right there. So that's a bad idea. That didn't turn out good. Hit that like button.
It's raining.
Oh, good. Thank goodness. That knocks down the fire hazard problem.
Yeah. Keep us good and humid.
Yeah, keep the humidity. Pretty soon you'll have humidity like us. Won't you love that?
Sammy's pushing cows or something today.
Is he?
I hope he's got to get his slicker on.
You're mean.
He done just kidding his dogs here and took off and like, well,
Yeah.
I hope you get wet today, buddy.
How long's he gonna be gone if he dropped dogs and kids and everybody?
Oh,
Well,
just today.
dog rides around with him, I guess, huh?
No, they both stayed here. I was surprised.
No, I mean that's why he brought it probably. Did Boone bring his dog?
Yeah, they're both here. The two dogs.
So how is
Well, I'm surprised that he didn't take the corgi with him.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Although he wasn't sure how long a day it was going to be, so it could be a pretty long ride.
That might tire him out. He's not. Well, how old is he now? 6 months or so, or is he older than that?
I don't know.
Or not that old, maybe even.
Seems like he's ancient now. He's got to be.
Seems like he's ancient now.
He's got to be not 8, 9 months old, I think.
Oh, Brenda threatened she can grab SOB and take off after me. In case if I've never mentioned it before, this is SOB right here. And I call it that because every time it falls over, that's usually what I yell at it. So we've named it that officially. And it's for some reason it's become my favorite cane. I don't like those newfangled ones with the handles. I like this, but what I'd really like to have, I've got to order me one, is something with a silver ball or maybe even a chrome ball, not because it's shiny, but because brass leaves that brassy smell on your hands, and I don't like that smell. But I've gotten used to it now.
Plus, you need one that you got a blade down inside.
Yes, that's what I really want. I was working on one for a while, and I dropped off of it, and I need to get back.
They don't mess with you when you got a cane sword.
No.
Or a sword cane.
There's nothing else they're going to be surprised when it comes out.
What do you need, bud?
I've got one, Tina, right here. In fact, I've got a couple of them here downstairs. I put up those hook things you can buy for your utility room, like you stand a broom up in and snap it into the, it's folded metal and it's springy. That's what I've got right here. And I've got one over here because I used to have another cane
not on there,
just stood there. And but I don't have those all over the house, so I got to find convenient and things.
Your grandmother needs to come get you.
Oh no! No!
Yeah.
Oh no!
Oh yeah, he's hit him.
What was he doing? That got him so upset.
He just wants up in my lap, and he ain't getting in my lap.
Oh, bad grandpa.
Bad grandpa.
Wasn't there a movie?
He don't want to like watch you either. He wants me to turn it over to colder wall and watch cowpoke.
Oh, cowpoke, yes.
Yeah, so he don't even want to talk to you. He just wants up in my lap so he can watch.
To change shirts this morning, damn it.
He can watch poke.
Tina says the ones with the ball on the end are better for helping you stand. Yes, they are. He has Chuck has 4 different sticks and canes, huh? I got 2. Actually, I've got 3. I've got one that flips over and makes a seat, which I don't have in front of me right now. I got this one. I got a hurricane kind of thing. It's supposed to stand up, but it don't. And it's okay, but it's probably, I'd like it to be a little stouter. Okay, Doug, so how'd you get it out? Did you have to use a rubber band or did you come up with some other trick? I'll tell you another good trick, and that's You probably don't have any, but like valve grinding compound, you can put it in the screw head and it'll make the screwdriver bite. How's your torture bunny this morning, Tina? Tina has a bunny that's been in her yard, Mark. Tina's got a rabbit that comes down in her yard and sits about 10 feet away from her dog's chain, the end of it. It just sits there and drives the dogs crazy.
The dog's a big dog, isn't it?
Hound looking dog, yeah.
Yeah. So one of these days the chain's not going to be fastened.
and he's going to surprise Mr.
And
Bunny.
he's going to come out there and like do his little nanny.
Good job, Doug. He was able to get a hold of the head and get pliers on it. He got nanny boo boo. Boy, a rabbit can squeal too if he gets hold of it. I couldn't believe first time I ever heard predator call. I couldn't believe that's another one of those sounds I'm sure people hear in the night and think it's a goblin or
it's a hoodoo, a Hank.
A Hank coming because that, something grabs a rabbit sitting on a nest or sitting on a spot out in the grass and they can squall like hell won't have it. I had a cougar. Somebody had posted a picture.
He doesn't know that Danny's a mean killer.
That's right. He's killed other things. I posted a picture. I got it from somewhere else, but it was a cougar standing out in the wild in the dark, and they had an infrared camera on it, and it was vocalizing like crazy, and it was making all kinds of sounds that people would never think would come out of a cat's
lion.
Mountain lion, yeah. It was. I'd show it to you, but I can't post it here. Well, I mean, I could if I brought it in.
Well,
but
did you see that? I posted that. Those two lynx on the road, two male lynx up there in Canada. They were kind of bumping heads and howling at each other.
Yeah, I did. I did see that.
That's a banshee's wail right there, buddy.
Tina,
it was at night.
Well, I'll try that. Let me see if I can. I don't know how to do that and make it work. I've been having trouble with that. Hang on, man. I don't know if I can make that work or not. I haven't had much luck lately sharing anything with any kind of sound. Doesn't seem to work.
Yeah, we couldn't get that to work yesterday, remember?
No, I know. That's why I don't know if it will today either, but not to mention I got to find it first. There's a video out of a house cat, and he comes running across the floor and hops up in this on this wooden bench at a table, dinner table, and he jumps up and lands sideways on all four paws at the same time. Legs are like stiff, and when he just thunks like he's solid, like you drop down a wooden cat or something. Well, I just think it's cool the way he lands. Well, I don't see it, Tina. Was that on my phone? I'll have to work on that. I might have to do that next week when I can get it. But I've had trouble with that. I can't, I did it for a while because when I was doing those cartoons, I was able to put them in my page and I could play it and it worked just fine. Everybody can hear it, but I can't seem to make the sound work anymore.
They probably banned you from sound.
Maybe they did.
We'll show him.
Tina says, well, there's not much sound other than Danny howling at the rabbit. Okay. I'll have to do that, Tina. I'll work on that and figure out how to put that in. Brenda said you posted on Instagram. I watched it last night. I did or she did? It was on the Sunshine Chat on IG. Well, I'll work on it. That's what I'll do. I'll figure it out and I'll play it. Oh, golly darn it. Oh, Brenda don't know it yet, but I ordered a new seat cushion for my chair. I sure hope it gives me some relief. I've spent a lot of time in this chair this week, and I'm not sure why.
Just like Uncle Bercy shooting up in the tree.
Yeah, one of us got to have some relief.
Got to have some relief.
Okay, I'm gonna get this ready because I have a feeling that we're gonna talk about this a lot, and so I'm gonna get ready to get. What time is it? Yeah, I'm gonna get ready to get started here. From the beginning. And the Lord saith, there was light up in the teepee, and it was good. And from outside the teepee, they looked like shadows moving across the walls, ghosts from the past, except one had on a baseball cap. Spirits from yesteryear had no baseball caps.
What are you reading?
I'm making it up as I go.
You're just like, that's just coming off the top of your head.
That's coming right out, buddy. That's coming right out of the old imagination factory right there. Da, 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 da. Well, Mark and I were talking one day this week, and we started quoting movies and doing things that he and I do, and he's really good at it. And we came up with the idea. I said, we said, that's a good topic. We'll talk about Westerns. Hey, John, good morning, buddy.
He's sharpening fillet knives.
Oh, that's a good sound. You got fish to fillet, have you, this morning? If anybody needs a seat cushion, that's barely used we got. Oh, wait a minute. Well, it makes about the fifth seat cushion you have. So if anybody needs a seat cushion, that's barely used one we've got. Well, maybe. I mean, yeah, probably. But I got a purple seat cushion like the people that make purple bed mattresses, and that's a good one. But it's just it don't fit in the right places. The one I'm getting comes up in the back. It really looks good. I sure hope. And they make them for big butts, so that might fit better anyway. All done. 2 keeper fluke in the freezer. And how big are the keeper flukes this time of year? Or how big do they have to be? Right there, Mark. I see
That big.
That big. Not this big. Man, they catch some big ones up in Alaska, though. Wow. I think you said that your buddy.
But those are halibut.
Oh, I thought they caught big fluke up there too, or flounder, whichever one it is.
Well, I think they're related, but I don't think they're
Okay.
actual.
So
I don't think they're actual flounder.
Well, boy, do they catch some big halibut up there. Good morning, Mike. Nobody in here has talked bad about you all morning, just so you know.
Very cool. Those are good flounder there.
23, 27 inches. So if anybody doesn't know, flounder is a fish that eyes are on both sides of its head so it can look up.
But only as an adult.
Only as an adult.
It's a young one, it's got one on each side, just like
they migrate. Somehow they migrate around. Nature is amazing what it can do.
It is.
Frogs can regrow, or some frog, or lizards of sorts can regrow tails. I think At least
Salamanders can.
amphibious frogs, some of them can grow legs back, or all of them can. A lizard can break off its tail as an escape route. And I know that for a fact because I saw Teddy break one about this long into about 4 pieces the other day. He just kept grabbing that lizard and it kept breaking off its tail and running away.
Mike's wondering if he missed the conversation about horse trailers.
No, we were saving that for you, Mike. I mentioned it earlier that you weren't here to talk about horse trailers. I think we might have come on a hook, Mark. Diana's been kind of a little bit difficult, pushy backy, kind of thing. And I may have come up with something. I figured out that you could put horses, you could have a horse trailer, but you could also put a basset hound area.
Yeah, a big one
back there too, and that might have turned the tide, but I'm not sure. And
you
I'm
can
not.
haul your bassets like a whole herd of bassets.
You can have a whole herd of bassets right back there in the back. John, sounds delicious. Hey, Tim tried, but none of us took the bait.
You guys get rained out.
There's a train. You heard it, but you couldn't find it.
Oh, he's hunting a train. Boy's getting ready to do the second great train robbery here.
Oh, well, it's good to start practicing the trade early. Train robbing's a pretty good trade if you can find the work.
He's got his dwarven warrior steed with him.
Oh boy.
And plotting. He's plotting right now.
Mike says, I know I could depend on you guys for great ideas. Well, you're right. Because we come up with something. I mean, I've got it all in my head. You can put down some artificial turf. And that kind you can spray hose off when you get, in case they go potty on the turf and they're driving down the road. You can put in some secure cages to lock, to shut them up in when you need to. But the rest of the time, they could just be running loose in that part of the trailer. And if you didn't happen to be hauling your horses at that time, they'd have a whole bunch of room back there to run around.
Yeah, free ranging.
Free range, free range bassets. I mean, think about that a minute. We might have a whole niche market here that we could sell. You guys, we might go with this idea to horse trailer people or the people that make fifth wheels with horse trailers. Excuse me, get that straight. And suggest that this would also be a good way that people could haul their favorite dogs with them if need be. And this could go somewhere. Oh, Lord help me, she said.
You could have like a double decker. You could run like a whole bunch, like up in the high up.
Yeah,
like right. If it was winter time and you needed to keep them a little warmer.
Mike says this is a whole new subject. No, Mike. It's the same subject. We're just trying to make it more palatable for your spousal unit. Tina said Bassett running hither and thither, or hither and yon. We're trying to help, Mike. Just hang in there a minute.
It'd be pandalarium.
Pandalarium. Might even be some pandemonium.
As old Foxworthy or one of those guys said, it was pandalarium.
So to go back to the Western thing. So Mark and I were talking, and we were talking about some of our favorite movies, and we decided, Westerns might be a good idea. And it was a good idea, and it is a good idea. But it also became a bad idea because I didn't realize how stressful it was going to be about what to pick and what not to pick. At least this first edition. That's why you now see it says at the top, part 1 of our favorite Westerns. Because there's probably going to have to be a part 2 one weekend. We might not do it next weekend, but
John said the Outlaw Josie Wells was a great start. So
yes, it is. Well, I thought that'd make a great picture for the first page. And Diana says, you guys have no idea. No Bassett's is sleeping in a trailer unless there's a king size bed. Well, that could happen, Diana. That could happen.
yeah,
Well,
there's plenty of room. There's plenty of room in the back of those for
oh,
a king
yeah.
bed.
That wouldn't be a problem at all. He probably could even put a couple if he didn't make them full length. So they could, just for Bassett purposes. I'm sure that you could put a couple of sofa couches in there because they could. I've seen them lay on couches at your house. So I know they would do that. And that would work. And
Where you going, bud?
Mike says, sorry, Diana, the dogs can sleep inside the bunkhouse. There you go. Make it a fun thing, Mike. Make it a fun thing. Let the Basset Hounds and the puppies go to Basset Hound Camp. We could call it Fifth Wheel Follies or something. The Fifth Wheel Camp for dogs. And they could stay in the bunkhouse. We could even build like a little chow hall with a little bowl for each one of them, lined up. And call that the chow hall. I mean, I think we could theme this and really get somewhere with it. Do you think, Mike, dogs would respond to waking up at the sound of a bugle playing reveille? We could, Pavlov proved that you could, train a dog to respond to something like that. You blow on that horn and they all start salivating until they run over and eat that kibble.
You could put wagon wheels as decoration on the side of the trailer.
Oh, yeah. It'd be just like Spin and Marty on the old Disney show. I can't remember what they called their place, the camp. It was a ranch. Actually, it was actually Walt Disney's ranch.
Back in the old days when they had really good programming.
Yeah, I have that on DVD or
Spin and Marty.
Yeah,
Sweet.
At least one series. Now I don't know if there was multiple series of it or not, but I've got one that's 10 or 12 episodes long.
That's a good Western too.
It was. And it was a fun Western because it made little kids like me want to go bad. Wanted to be that guy. Wanted to be Spinning Marty. Ride them horses and do that rodeo stuff and everything they did there.
What you doing
The problem
here,
is, I still hadn't gotten to the problem. But the problem is, no, I did get to the problem, didn't I? So let's go. I'm going to move into the show, and because I know this is going to take a while. Bassett. Wait a minute. Bassets will come running at the sound of a food bowl at 10 meters if they're like hounds. Sometimes cats will do that too.
So my border collie, when he's on chicken watch, he's 100 yards behind the house back by the barn, and I just tap on the bottom of a metal food bowl, and it makes a dinner gong kind of sound. And
Next
here
thing
he
you hear him punching out.
And here he comes.
You can hear him and Sam back there punching out.
Yep.
Coming for the dinner bell. Press, hang on tight, Diana. Hang tight. Here, the unicorns are on your side. Well, sure they are, because they could ride back there too.
Exactly.
So John says he's back on the saddle again. I mean, growing up and watching Spin and Marty, and they sat by the campfire every night and sang a song, played a guitar. I mean, it just don't get a whole lot better than that. Well, maybe when you get to the age where brown liquor's involved, maybe that's a little better. Can be, or it can be worse. So
come here.
Just depends.
Say
Hey
hey.
there,
Say
cowboy.
hey.
I know that's Penny, isn't it?
That's Penny.
Wow, her face is.
Look how big she is now.
I see.
I can't get you in the.
Is she about grown?
No. She's got lots of room.
It looks like her mask is stretching out a little bit already.
Yeah. Okay, off you go.
You know, Nicky, when we first got Nicky, he had just a perfect mask, like husky
Right.
Malamutes tend to do. But as he grew, it moved out and
Stretched out. And
it changed. They just grew out of it. John said, just trying to get in the mood. Well, you're in the mood, John. Welcome. You're a good thing, buddy. I appreciate that. Speaking of basset hounds, Tim, have you had a chance to look at any rescue? I've started, Mike, and I'm going to be honest, I hadn't got that far, but I've discovered that there's several in the state, and a couple of them are up in my area. So I'm looking into what they have. Right now, the ones I've seen so far, I haven't seen any puppies, and the ones I've seen don't look like they're I guess purebred. They look like there's a little bit of happy mix going on there, which is, I don't think they look like a really good basset. I mean, they look I think they might have come along with the basset as a friend, but I'm not sure they're truly basset. So I'm still looking, and so now the answer is I don't have one for you yet, but I'm still working on it. I have not forgotten. You're welcome, Mike. Maybe while you're down here, we can look at some horse trailers. Anyway, we're going to look at a few westerns today, and it might seem a little one-sided. That's because we got to do some more. But anyway, hit that like button if you don't mind, or the unlike button, and subscribe to the channel if you think you might get anything out of this craziness that we have here. Mike says, I bet you there's lots of fifth wheel trailers. Oh yeah, there are lots of fifth wheel trailers down here. Most of them get pulled back and forth to either the lake or the Smokies. And then leave a comment. Apparently all these things help YouTube promote the channel. And down there I've got a big old thank you in the corner. And I don't get a lot of comments. I don't know if that matters to, I don't know what YouTube does with that. I read that that's part of the algorithm, but I'm not sure what algorithms I want to be a part of or not. So that's hard. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, let's move right along to the motion picture industry. Dum-ba-da-da. And some of these guys, that you might imagine, came out in the No Speaky movies. And a lot of westerns, some of these westerns at least, came along right after sound got to be a real thing. And some of them, like the Lone Ranger, were, I don't know if, John, I don't know if, I never was a comic book guy, so I don't know if the Lone Ranger comics came out before. I bet what do they call them? The dime novels and stuff probably had the Lone Ranger long before they had a movie. But I found this poster that's just got a whole bunch of old time cowboys: Tim McCoy, Ken Maynard, Buck Jones. Well, my goodness.
he just got diverted.
Oh, I could tell. Bonnie Corbett, Joan Barclay, Richard Arlene, Mary Bryan, and the Rangers step in. That sounds like a good one there. Now, around here, we can watch some of these. Probably right now on the TV back behind me, they would have, they run cowboy matinee movies that this guy that does the show grew up watching. He actually knew a lot of these guys because he worked in the movies for a while. No, this didn't have any Tom Mix on this page, but certainly is would rank high on this. Mike said, was that a rooster? Yeah, it's a rooster, all right.
So if you look at, well, he moved.
Who?
Now just hold still right there. If you look at Tim's, is that your right shoulder? Yeah, your right shoulder. Go down. Tom Mix was killed in a car crash right there at the center of your.
We're right in here.
At Oracle, south of there, south, down towards Tucson.
Oh, right in here.
Well, a little north of that, it was, and the road's just as straight as an arrow, and it's in the middle of nowhere. And he did the one car rollover thing there.
Mm.
What you got, buddy?
I don't know what I was looking for the other day, but I found a sign. It was an old speed limit sign from one of those states. It was either Nevada or you guys, or I don't remember which state it was. Might have been Montana, but it was basically the speed limit said anything. How did it put it?
It's probably Montana.
It basically
drive
was
to save speed.
something like that.
You could drive 100 if you wanted to.
Yeah, if you got close to 100, you can do it. So anyway, when the Western genre came out, and it became popular pretty quick, and it dominated American movies for 20 years or better. And then TV came along, and it dominated too for a while. The American Film Institute defines a Western film as those set in the American West that embody the spirit, the struggle, and the demise. And the demise, that's a key word, the demise of the new frontier. And that was from Wikipedia. And note 10. Well, I can't think of the word. Man, I'm getting. Anyway, the period from 1940 to 1960 was the golden age of Western. If you guys, some of you guys will remember going to Disney World and going to the studios, and in the Great Movie Ride, they had a section about the Western genre and its time in Hollywood. And it is epitomized by the work of several prominent directors, including Robert Aldrich, I don't know how that's pronounced, Bo Etcher, Delmer Davies, and John Ford, of course, and then there were some others. The silent westerns were in, their first silent western was in 1894. And it was a several-part saga / series, probably something you cranked it. I don't know if it was a hand crank or what. But 1894, that was, before the turn of the century, they had some kind of a silent western out already. And I don't know why I put the golden age of western films in there twice, but I did. But anyway, this was just I found this poster and I like it because it covered a lot of different things. But it doesn't have some really different ones like Tom Mix, and it doesn't have Hopalong Cassidy on it. I don't know if he came out this early or not. He used to be, when I was growing up, he was one of my favorites. I was heartbroken when Hopalong Cassidy went off my Saturday morning TV shows.
No, knock it off.
Of course, along with all this stuff comes a lot of other things like that aren't necessarily very correct, and Hollywood didn't do justice to a lot of things about the West. Like Native Americans were often depicted, like the one in the bottom down here.
Can you read that, Mike?
Why did you just throw the duck out there? It wasn't very nice.
Said he liked my hat.
I guess he could see it. I couldn't read it there while it was sitting on your head. You must have moved and he saw it. Flying W. Whose hat is that? Is that just a hat in general?
Cody Webster.
Cody Webster's hat? Cool.
Yeah. Get out of here.
I saw him. No, wait a minute. Who had the broke ribs the other day? Was that him?
Yep, he got busted ribs. That's Cheyenne. No. Yes, Cheyenne. He got broke ribs at Cheyenne.
He's back in the ring or the arena. I saw him the other day.
He's just a tough human being.
Yeah, well, yeah, he is. Anyway, moving right along to the next one, which is, because in Western tissue movies in the 1940s and 50s and part of the 60s, there were, in fact, in 1959 was the peak year for wet TV Westerns. There were 26 of them. And that's a little bit misleading because there was a lot of half-hour Westerns. And they eventually, a lot of those got replaced by hour-long Westerns. So there might have been less, but there was probably just about as much content in that regard as there was before, because a lot of these shows went to hour-long shows like Cheyenne. Death Valley days, I think, went to long. Mavericks were an hour long. Bonanza was an hour long. Smith and Jones, Alias Smith and Jones, was one of my favorite Westerns when it was on. Now, the Lone Ranger, I've never seen anything but a half-hour show for it. And Ren 1010 over here in the right corner, if anybody remembers Ren 1010, I can't remember the little boy's name. But I don't remember it being anything other than a half-hour show either. Gunsmoke started out as a half hour, but then became an hour-long show. The last few years it was on, it was always an hour. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You don't remember do you remember Ren 1010 at all?
I mean, I've seen some of them, but
And
we're in the Wayback Machine here.
Yeah, we're in the Wayback Machine pretty much. Of course, then Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman came along much later than most of these did. But I put her in there because
I never watched that one.
Well, it wasn't a bad show. It had, what was her name? She was in James Bond. Her first big movie was a James Bond role where she was a card reader. But
I watched Cheyenne.
Tina remembers Ren 1010, but she don't remember their name either. Bat Masterson down here in the lower corner was the one I watched growing up a lot. They ran him and Wyatt Earps and a couple other ones a lot together. Death Valley Days, which that's a 20 mule team wagon pulling borax out of Death Valley, although I don't ever remember the shows being about that. But I guess that's something they did down in Death Valley. So, and of course, Maverick, and kind of interesting thing about Maverick was there was at least 3 different versions of Maverick. There was Brett Maverick and Bart Maverick, and I didn't know it till the other day, but an actor who went on to become James Bond for several movies, I think most of anybody, or maybe he and Sean Connery may have tied. Oh God, my mind's held is crap today. All right, Tina. Roger Moore, thank you. Jane, who's cousins with Jane Seymour? You? That'd be interesting. Roger Moore started out doing Maverick Westerns. He was the Maverick brother who came over from England, apparently, because he had that accent. And he did a whole series, like 1 year's worth of shows. And I think that was the only year he was on. And they've been running those on my TV. There's a channel here that starts out every morning with some some Westerns. And that's one of them. Maverick's on right now. Cheyenne is another hour long that I watched growing up. I always liked Cheyenne. And I'm currently trying to watch those in the mornings when they come on, just cause. And of course, Gunsmoke and Bonanza. Bonanza, I believe, is still the longest running Western on TV, and for a long time it was the longest running show period. But I think that's been beaten now. I'm not positive. Alias Smith and Jones was kind of an interesting thing. There were 2 bad guys trying to go good. It was sort of a play off of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. I always thought. But then they were always trying to stay out of trouble. The sad thing about that movie was the guy who played, I believe, Jones, the dark-haired guy, committed suicide, I think, halfway through the second year. I got Rawhide coming, John. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. He committed suicide, but they tried to continue on with another guy, which they did. But the show didn't last. I never did think the two guys matched as well. But that was just one of my short time favorites. And then, I mean, we just had a plethora of, historic cowboys doing TV. This one of course, Have Gun Will Travel with Will Boone? No.
Richard
Boone. And that they're running some of those right now on that channel. And Chuck Connors was the rifleman. And of course, Wagon Train. And Rawhide, who launched a career for
Clint Eastwood.
God, what is wrong with me today? Tombstone Territory, which I don't really remember, but it ran for a couple of years. And a lot of the TV shows were based around a sheriff of some sort. You got the guy over here in the corner. He played the Virginian on that show for a long time. For me, it wasn't my favorite. The Big Valley was a Western I didn't care that much about either. It was Hollywood's attempt to turn a Western into a soap opera, I guess, and I didn't much care for it.
Well, the Virginian, they were like hour and a half long episodes.
Yeah, they were kind of like movies almost, and they rotated them with other things.
And the Virginian is a motel in Medicine Bow, Wyoming, which is where the show was set.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but it wasn't anywhere near the actual Medicine Bow, Wyoming.
Well, it doesn't look like it when you see the background and everything.
No, it's definitely not. But
I remember it being a lot greener.
That's Chuck Drury, I think's the guy that played.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. And the bunch above that were all in Wagon Train, which also launched some careers. That's Robert Fuller, I believe is his name on the left. The guy in the middle was in a lot of Westerns. I can't remember his name. And, of course, the Chuck Wagon
is that
guy.
Ward Bond? I can't.
Might be Ward Bond, yeah.
I can't see him.
I think it is. And then I'm not sure who the young guy is down here in the corner, but he looks a lot like Harry Carey's boy, but I don't
It's
know.
not. But I don't think that's Ward Bond. I think that's a different guy up there.
It might be. John says
Actually, those guys look like they might have been on the Virginian.
Well, they were listed as Wagon Train guys. It's just a color picture. Some of them might have been on Virginia. Now I know Robert Fuller was in several different westerns, and if you recall, he was the bad guy in the El Dorado movie.
And that guy in the top center that I thought was maybe Ward Bond, and isn't. That he was in the Virginian. He was the head segundo judge guy that maybe even owned the ranch.
Well, Wagon Train had been long gone off by the time Big Valley or the Virginian came on, if I recall. And John said, or Mike asked when Ronald Reagan started doing westerns. Before most of these were done, because by the time these came out, he was already into politics. But
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
I think it was in the 50s.
Yeah, probably.
Post-war. He might have even done something before the war.
Yeah, he might have. I mean, during the war, he made war films, or he made training films at some point. I don't think he ever saw combat or anything. Tina says she's got to get her husband up. He knows all this stuff. Yeah, he probably does. I wish I could remember it all better. I remember it all by watching it, but I can't remember everybody's names. John said he learned to ski at Medicine Bow. That'd be kind of cool. Why did I think Gunsmoke ran longer than Bonanza? Well, I don't know, Tina. I'd have to check that. I thought Bonanza ran longer as a series, but I could be wrong. I just remember when Bonanza went off, it was a big deal, and I think Gunsmoke had already gone by then. Maybe it had something to do with. I don't remember Bonanza ever being a half-hour show, but Gunsmoke definitely started out as a half-hour. Tina was asking if
And that's the one I thought was the longest running Western ever.
Okay, I'm going to look right now.
Because it went for decades.
Bonanza from 1959 to 1973. It says second only to Gunsmoke. Why is it listed as the longest and say second only to Gunsmoke as the longest running Western series in broadcasting color from the get-go? Bonanza followed, I don't know what it followed. So I guess it was second, that's funny because it says I typed in longest running TV Western and that's the first thing it pops up. But then it says second to Gunsmoke. So you're right. Gunsmoke was the longest running one, which makes sense.
And James Arness got that role because John Wayne recommended him to be that guy. When he got out of the military, when James Arness got out of the military, John Wayne recommended him to be Marshall Dillon.
Yeah, and I was thinking they had some other interactions, or
because they wanted John Wayne to do it, and he had his own production company and stuff by then, and Bat Jack or whatever, and he was like, "No, I'm busy doing movies. You can take this guy."
He was probably a little bit taller and bigger than John Wayne, actually.
Yeah.
He was a big man. There's a question on here that I just found. It says, what was the first Western series on TV? And it says on June 24th, 1949, Hopalong Cassidy, played by William Boyd, and his horse Topper rode across the small screen and into the homes of Western film lovers. And soon other ones followed: Gunsmoke, Cheyenne, the Lone Ranger, and Rifleman. What 50s team Gunsmoke was. I guess that'd be right. When you add up all the half-hour versions and the hour-long versions. And that they, by and large, they had the same cast running on that show, the same core for quite a long time till Festus. Well, they had Chester first. He did the half-hour shows. Weaver.
Yeah, Dennis Weaver.
And I when they changed, I thought, I don't want them to change. Of course, I don't like change. But Festus was probably the best.
He was by far better.
Yeah, he was better. and that'll come up in a later. Just remember,
Higgins is.
Don't say who he is.
They always they've called me that for years.
Festus,
the boys I worked with. Yeah.
John says Ward Bond, what a great actor, did many films with Wayne West. Yeah, he did a lot of stuff, John. You're right. And Carol said, I remember Gunsmoke and Bonanza being on TV when I was little, but I don't remember much about them. And you're younger, you probably didn't see a lot of these half-hour ones and stuff unless it was on reruns and things later. We didn't get color TV till the 80s. Wow, that was a long time, Tina. I remember we had a color TV.
We didn't either.
And the only reason we got one probably because Dad worked where he did and they sold them. In fact, he might have even brought home a used one that he got from the TV repair guy. But we had a color TV when it was a Magnavox. I too, because they were made locally back then. When the networks went color, because everything was black and white up until the early 60s. And then when they went color in the Wonderful World of Disney did the Wonderful World of Color, I can't talk. We had a color TV, so I got to see that when it came on first. But we had black and white. We had a second TV, and just a little black and white one, And, man, I don't remember ever having more than one TV most of my life. So we got one damn near every room now, so it's much different than it used to be. I couldn't believe my eyes the first time I saw Wizard of Oz in color and realized that the land of Oz was all color and Kansas was in black and white. That was and you wouldn't know this if you didn't see the movie on film or you didn't see it on a color TV, but there was a moment when
you had to get
the
up
horse
and turn
turned
the knob.
What?
Mike said he had to get up and go change the channel. That's right. You had to turn the knob.
Oh, yes. There wasn't no remote controls. And then when they did
and then your dad made you go up on the hill and turn the aerial
or up on the house, whichever. I had to climb up a pole and get on top of the house.
I had to go up in the woods in the hill, and then Dad would say, "Okay, hold it right there," and I'd let go. And of course, it would change everything. No, just hang on to it.
Yeah, I got that too. You turn it a little bit and start down off the house. Oh, whoa, get back up there. It's not. It was better where it was at.
Sometimes you were the antenna.
Yeah. What was I reading? Oh, the Horse of Many Colors is when the Wizard of Oz went from black and white to color was when they introduced the Horse of Many Colors, is what I think I remember. And, as it changed colors, voila, the movie went color. And that was pretty cool. And another cool thing about this, Walt Disney made and insisted all his movies be made in color from way back, even though nobody was showing color movies or TV, but he wanted them to be prepared for color when it came on. And a lot of his shows actually were shown in black and white, but they were shot in color. And they still show, every once in a while, I still see something.
And Tina said she was the antenna.
Yeah. Hey, you know what that's like, Tina.
My daughter called all these black and white shows gray movies.
Oh, yeah. You told me that one day, gray movie.
She wanted to watch a movie one evening, and I put in something black and white. No, Dad, not a gray movie.
I didn't. Once I got to color, I didn't like black and white, but now I kind of appreciate it better. Maybe that was shooting all that black and white film in high school. I don't know. What am I missing here? I like that Carol said, Mike, those were barbaric times when you had to get up and turn the channel. They really were, Mike.
And you had the VHF channels, and you had a couple of UHF.
Hey, John, say hi to Dad. I hope he's well. Enjoy those fish.
Yeah. Eat some filet for me, buddy.
Okay, let's go. I think I got a couple more of these guys. One more page of these TV cowboys, maybe. And here's some of the most famous ones ever. And they made movies and TV. And I'm not sure Audie Murphy actually ever did anything on TV. He might have done some cameos. But Audie Murphy, we'll talk about him in a minute. Roy Rogers is probably one of the most famous cowboys ever. And his Wonder Horse Trigger. And
he was from Lucasville, Ohio.
He was from Lucasville, Ohio. His last
like
name
15 miles from Mom and Dad's place.
Is that where Sly is? I didn't know where it was at.
Yeah, it's right there. It's over on the Big Soda River there.
So west of them.
That west and south.
Yeah.
But close, you know. You've
Yeah.
been right through there. When we went back to see him that last time, we went right through there.
Now I can't remember. Maybe you will. The Roy Rogers and Gene Autry both had musical ranches, or they were named. I thought they were named that. One of them was Melody Ranch, and I'm not sure which one that was. I think it was Autry. Do you think Trigger has a fifth wheel trailer? Oh, Diana. Well, that might have been before fifth wheels, but I'll guarantee you he had a good one.
I bet he had a nice horse trailer
I bet he did too. He probably
with living quarters up front and a spot just made for Bassett's. You muted.
unmuted myself. Well, he had a dog. Roy Rogers had a German Shepherd too. It wasn't Rin Tin Tin, of course. Shoot, now I can't think of his name. So he probably rode in the trailer with Trigger. So they had but that we could go back to that and probably use that as a model. But I think we can probably do better today. Mike got fly, but I'm not sure what that means.
That's Gene down there in the left corner.
Yeah, this is Gene, and I can't remember this lady's name. It was on there, and I thought I could remember it. I should have known better than that. And of course, the Sons of the Pioneers, who are down here in the bottom, they didn't get their start here, but they did several with Roy Rogers. I remember, in fact, they even had a movie called The Sons of the Pioneers, and they sang in that movie. That wasn't supposed to be necessary. I don't know if that's where they got their name, or if the movie just took that name and used it, because it wasn't about them, but they were in it. And of course, that's just where Festus came from.
Festus Hagen was a son of pioneers.
He was indeed. I don't think he's in that picture. Yeah, maybe. Is he the?
I don't see him.
He's not.
I was looking for him. I don't see him.
Okay, but he was one of the Sons of the Pioneers. And if you hear him talk, I think about him talking in Gunsmoke, and I think, wow, what beautiful music used to come from that throat. I say, and of course,
Ken Curtis.
King Curtis.
He was from southeast Colorado, out there in the cowboy country.
Well, you're going to get Chuck up if he's got all the answers, Tina. He's missing it. And of course, these three in the middle were Audie Murphy, and the reason I put him on there for two reasons. One, he was another cowboy, and he did more movies. I don't know if he did a TV show per se, but I think he was in some stuff. I know one of his movies was I think it was called Seven, or The Man Named Seven. It had something to do with seven, and that was his name. His parents, he said, the line in the movie was, his parents had like 9 kids, and they couldn't think of no name, so they just named them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and he was 7. But cool thing about Audie Murphy is he was one of the most highly decorated American soldier in World War II. He got medals from just about every country that was involved in the war, plus the United States, including the Congressional Medal of Honor for actions in battle. I mean, this guy, and I just read his book. I never really.
He was a little bitty scutter. They wouldn't.
Yeah,
he wanted to go to the Marine Corps, and they're like, "No, you're too little."
And he tried to go to the paratroopers, and they wouldn't take him either. And he finally got in the infantry.
Right.
Nobody else would take him. And
man, did he do some damage?
Jesus! But now that I've seen the movie many times, to hell and back.
Yeah.
But that's, of course, a movie. If you read the book, from the day he hit the ground in North Africa, well, not as much. North Africa was a cakewalk compared to Italy, Sicily, Italy, and then France. Once he got to France, he didn't go in on D-Day. He went in on the South invasion.
Yeah, he came in from the south.
Yeah, but they were in combat literally at the tip of the spear for months. I mean, his group was up there not just because of him or his platoon. I mean, like that army group led the charge as far as infantry goes. Joined up with, I think they ran with Patton for a while. Talked about freezing, guys freezing their toes off in foxholes. It was intense and quite good and fast paced. I mean, he was in the middle of it for months. It amazes me that he survived, honestly. He was just one of those lucky guys, I guess, that managed to. No bullet had his name on it, because just about everybody he knew that went with him and started going in with him, were long dead. There was just one or two guys survived the war with him that started out in his group. And by the time he got out, he started out as a lowly private. By the time he got out, he was at least a lieutenant. No, not by the time he got out. By the time World War II was over, he was a lieutenant, which is sort of unheard of because he was an enlisted guy and he wasn't, an officer. But he got those promotions because they'd lost so many officers. They kept promoting him when he would take it. He didn't take it for a long time because he didn't want to be an officer. And but by the time he actually spent quite a bit of time with the military after the war, he stayed on, and then I believe served in the reserve or the guard. He was and I think he ended up being a colonel, which is to me pretty fascinating and says a lot about him. He grew up hard, just like the movie said. I mean, pretty much his mom died early, his dad left him. He worked. He quit school, I think, in the 6th grade, or maybe he made it to the 9th grade. But he was only 17 when he joined. I think when he joined the army, and he wanted to get in the military. He had the old man that kind of helped raise him. Always talked about, he wished he'd stayed in the army. And of course, he talked about that a little bit in his book, and he's like, bullshit, who would want to do this? But I mean, he was just a heck of a soldier. And I think, it's not just his word for it. His medals show it. He had commendations out the yin yang and was quite the guy. But anyway, he did a lot of, he did not as many movies as Roy Rogers or Gene Autry, but he did several Westerns. And those are, that's a publicity picture here, but these are two different Westerns. And then we're going to move into Monument Valley. In Monument Valley, a lot of things were shot in Monument Valley. John Ford, this was his favorite place to make a movie. And you can see why if you look around. I mean, look at that backdrop. It's quite spectacular, I would say. Hey, Dave. Space Mountain Dave has joined us, or Cantrell has joined us, rather. And sorry I missed you, Dave. Tina is trying. What, to wake up Chuck? Yeah, Chuck's sleepy. Maybe we shouldn't get him up. Yeah, it is, Mike. That's some view. That's all Navajo country, too.
That's worth going to see, Mike. When you're down here with the horse trailer, that's a good place to unload a pony or two and go wander about.
From you, that's on the south end of the state, isn't it? Well, I know it is. It's down on the lower end somewhere.
Well, it's in Utah.
Yeah, I know it's in Utah, but it's a long
way.
It's
in the north end of the Navajo res.
Right. Which is in Utah. That area is in Utah. Anyway, John Ford liked to make movies there. and he was famous. And this is some of his movies that were made in Monument Valley, and these are some of our. We got to the part where it's Mark and Tim's favorite westerns.
So this is without a doubt my favorite John Wayne Western.
And this is a movie that I need to watch again. I haven't watched it in years, but at the time I wasn't sure I liked it. Probably because it was a little bit of a dark movie compared to most of the other westerns that I knew at the time. Now, there's a lot of revisionist or new age westerns that are darker, but this one was had a pretty tough line focus. I don't know how else to describe it.
So Ward Bond is sitting there in that middle picture with the top hat on. And
Yeah,
he right there, and John Wayne's son Patrick, I think it was his first role in no, it wasn't his first role. That was probably The Quiet Man, but it was one of his early roles. He was still just a boy, and he was playing like a cavalry lieutenant or something, brand new, bright and shiny second lieutenant, and he had a sword that he always had drawn. And Ward Bond was always yelling at him to watch that knife. And then there's Hank Worden down at the bottom, old Mose.
And over here, right, Harry Carey over here in the right.
Harry Carey Jr. Yeah.
And I believe that is, what was the lady's name it was married to? She drowned off the boat. It's always questionable. Or, Natalie Woods, I believe.
That's Natalie Wood, yep.
I don't know if I'm sure that's not her first movie, but it had to be one of her early movies because she wasn't that old. I mean,
and Patrick Wayne talks about like following her around like a little puppy dog.
Well, I can see why. Hey, Chuck. Hi, Chuck. Good morning, Chuck. We're talking westerns, buddy. So anyway, I picked this picture because I liked it, but there were several other movie posters that I could have used. But you can just look in the background here. This was, I believe this was, no, it wasn't the first one he made in. I don't think it was his first one in Monument Valley.
No, he'd made many
before that, yeah. Which I'm going to get to here.
Rio Grande and a bunch of those were all in the Monument Valley.
Well, I'm going to get to those. And I rechecked this, Mark.
And Fort Apache
was the first one. Actually, I thought it was the last one. But that makes sense because this is Henry Fonda was a starring role in this. And I assume Henry Fonda was already, he'd made Grapes of Wrath and I don't know what other kind of movies by the time he had done this, I think. Pretty sure he did, but John Ford and John Wayne made 3 movies that were all sort of based on this same theme. And John Wayne playing the same part in 2 of them. And one of them, he was a different character, but it was the same kind of movie. But they all had a different story, but they were similar. And
I think it's really interesting that you see all those Navajo gentlemen sitting horseback there in the line. Those are all Navajos.
Mm-hmm.
And John Ford believed in using Native Americans to play Native Americans, which was not normal at all for that era. Mostly they used, Hispanic folks or Italians even.
Or just plain white guys painted
up. White guys painted up. And
Rock Hudson. And they still did in some of these movies. I think there's one of these movies where Rock Hudson plays a chief and he's painted up, but all the other characters, were natives.
But these guys were all like master horsemen. I love watching the riding scenes in these. You know, you had Ben Johnson out there horseback and all these Navajo fellas, and that boy, they could ride a horse.
Chuck says, and I'm going to take that, see Mrs. Chuck. Chuck says the John Ford trilogy were the best. Fort Apache, She Wore a Yellow Ribbon, and Rio Grande. That's right. That's Chuck. We're going to talk about all three of those a little bit.
And Chuck, those are my, well, I said the searchers. These are high on the list of favorites too. Those three.
And that was
and there was a trade-off so that they could make The Quiet Man. That's the only reason those three movies were made. The studio required them to make 3 cavalry movies so that John Ford and Maureen O'Hara and John Wayne could make The Quiet Man.
And I didn't know that till Mark told me that.
Which is, you know, the queen of Technicolor. She was in that.
Yes, I'm yelling all the time that I'm more native than he is. Drives me nuts. I assume that's Chuck saying that too. Anyway, and this was kind of the theme of this was John. The guy that was in charge of the fort, and I can't remember his name, was retiring or leaving, and everybody thought that John Wayne would get that post. His character, I think he was York in this one.
Yep.
I guess he was I don't know if he was a captain or a major, but anyway, he didn't get Captain York, and he didn't get it though. They brought in Henry Fonda, and I mean,
kind of like Custer. If you look at how he, like the things he thought, you know, that he talked about, he was kind of like acting like George Armstrong, you know.
And I was going to put that in. I'm sure I could have I kind of did. You'll see in a minute. But yeah, those were kind of the tactics of the day. And I don't know if Custer taught them a lesson or if they learned later, but they didn't really work all that well.
They were fighting Apaches down here.
Yeah.
Who were none of that worked.
Some of the greatest cavalry horsemen in the world ever. I've read that in a lot of places. What kind of rifles he carries? Is that a Winchester? No, it's not. I don't know what that is that guy's got on that first horse. Well, it might be a Spencer. I don't know. The stock doesn't look right. There's no tube under it, so it's not lever action. Plus, I don't see one. They could have cut it off, but because they did do that. Anyway, they made Fort Apache, and then I don't know how much longer they did. She Wore a Yellow Ribbon, and Maureen O'Hara again was in this. This is Ben Johnson up here in the upper right. He's one of our favorite cowboys. I think I can say that. And of course, Harry Carey was in this one too. And it had a little different theme. And he wasn't York in this one, I don't believe.
He was not.
Captain Brittles, I believe was his name. Says it's his most heroic role as Captain Brittles of the U.S. Cavalry.
It's a good one.
Yeah, it's a good one. Nope, Tina said, nope, that was me. He just nods. And Chuck didn't know that thing about the Quiet Man either. But all these were good movies. I mean, Nathan Riddles, she said she typed. Well, it looks like a B on there, but it doesn't matter. And this was Brittles.
She corrected it. It's Brittles.
Okay, it is Brittles. I thought it looked like Brittles.
And then there's Rio Grande, the best of the.
Yeah, probably the best of the bunch.
My favorite of the three.
And I believe this guy down
ride those horses like Romans
Yeah.
standing up.
And his son had joined the army. He had failed mathematics at West Point. So he joined the cavalry or the infantry. But he was going to, I guess, change over to the cavalry. Excuse me. Shoot. Get back here. And this was one of his son. No, not his son. Oh shoot! Who played his son in the movie?
The kid that was on the yearling.
Was that him?
The kid that played the kid on the yearling. That's who played his son on this movie.
He was another actor's son, wasn't he?
No, he was a kid from Tennessee. Never.
Oh, okay.
Harry Carey Jr. was one of them.
He was one. In fact, no, that's not him there.
That's the kid that was off the yearling. That's his son.
Right, but that's not Harry. It's not Harry Carey's son. I was thinking that's who it was, but he's not.
So there was Ben Johnson,
who's standing up here with John Wayne and John Ford right here in the middle.
And there was Harry Carey Jr. and Victor McLaughlin is the old sergeant major.
That's him right there.
That burned down her house in the Shenandoah Valley.
Let's see here what I'm missing over here. Yes, I'm yelling all the time, but I'm more native than he is. Drives me. Okay, I already did that. Okay, I'm caught up over there. Mm-hmm. And Maureen O'Hara, I think, this is her. She came out because I guess her son was out there and her husband, who estranged husband, was out there. I don't know if they were divorced or not, but I believe the story in the movie is he hadn't seen his son since he was little.
Well, he was a Union officer.
Yeah.
And she was a Southern Belle from the Shenandoah Valley, and his outfit burned her plantation. And Victor McLaughlin was the one that set the fire. And he talks about, there's the black hand that did it. I wish you'd knock it off with that stick. And some guy has a stick and that he's whittling the doctor, and he whacks him with that stick and breaks it over his wrist.
He also played a sergeant, I believe, in the horse soldiers.
Yep, and he was in Fort Apache.
And they went in the horse soldiers, which I don't have on here. They went into a plantation and bivouacked, or took up residence for a night or so. And the house servant, I can't think of her name, but it'll come to me in a minute, was taking up a bottle of brandy or something to the officers. And he told her he had to do all the taste testing before they took it in. He was his job. So he got to taste not only straight out of the bottle, but each glass. And she said, "Isn't that a lot?" And he's like, "No, ma'am, we got to test it all. That's my job." And of course, it was not his job. And I'm going to go from there to one of my favorites is El Dorado. And one of the reasons this is my favorites is it's got who's the guy that was in there? He did a lot of other movies, but he didn't do a lot of other westerns. Anyway, he quoted Edgar Allan Poe's poem, that the El Dorado, throughout the movie, and that for some reason that always stuck with me. And in fact, that's where I got my name for my motorcycle. Shadow is from talking about the shadow, the ghost, or the shade, the spirit that's in El Dorado. And I also really like out. This is the guy I'm talking about. This was the young guy, James Caan. Thank you. Yeah, and Robert Mitchum was the other main star. He's down here in the bottom on crutches. They both had a leg wound. And, of course, John Wayne was riding this Appaloosa when this girl here in the middle part with James Caan shot him through the side and into his back, put a bullet up against his spine. So every once in a while, everything would go numb. And I know that feeling. And he couldn't use his gun hand. And then it had this young lady in it. And there was something unique about her. I can't remember what it was, but I do remember the line in the movie where they open the door and she's standing there dressed about like this with a house coat on or something over her shoulders. And James Caan's character kind of looks at him and says, well, you do know a girl. If that had been a topic of discussion in the movie. But I also like this old guy right here in the middle. He was one of my favorite old Honeycutt. I can't remember his first name. I'm terrible today about names. I got too much running in my head. I looked all these movies up and read about them last night, and now I can't remember any of it. That's what you get for trying to memorize crap at the last minute. Okay, Chuck, what was his last name? Do you remember? Besides the fact that she wore her underwear on the street. Well, she didn't do that in the movie. She was in her house when she opened the door and didn't expect John Wayne to have any company. And James Caan's character, who they call Mississippi, was in there. And the whole story of this one was a lot like another movie, which I'll talk about here in a minute. But Robert Mitchum had fallen for a girl, and then she had left town with the drummer salesman, and he'd just gone into drinking himself into a stupor, and the town was making fun of him, and he wasn't any good as the sheriff. And John Wayne was trying to rescue him out of that while trying to live through his own ailments. And then another thing, and I put this in here, but I'm not sure which movie this actually became a John Wayne symbol or icon. I like his character, Mississippi. You talking about that, Mike, or you just talking about the name? Anyway, he made that large bow in his Winchester lever. You know what I'm talking about? The cocking lever, instead of being straight back in like a rectangle, he made it a big bow. I had a guy do that, or they did it. And after that, he always carried a Winchester that had that kind of a bow. I can show one in a minute. I've got another picture of it here, I think. And in fact, in this movie, Robert Mitchum's character says he had one done like that for him too, because he liked his so much, which I assume he did. Funny thing about this is Henry rifles, and I think maybe the new Winchesters who were made by not Winchesters, Marlins, who were made by Ruger, still make copies or versions of this with a large bow in the lever.
I thought the gal was Mississippi.
Oh no, Mike. This is Mississippi up here with this funny hat on, standing beside this gal. And best I could tell, this was her kind of one and only large movie. I think she did some other stuff. She was in some other TV shows, but this was about the only movie of any renown that she was in. And for years I thought it was young Anne Margaret, but it's not. And let's see, Howard Hawks. I might be able to find that guy's name right here. I believe Charlene Holt played the lady here in the Arthur Honeycutt. That was his name. And he had another neat thing about his character in this movie, and I don't think I ever saw another movie. Well, maybe, but I can't remember another movie where one of the main characters carried a revolving rifle. And I think Colt made those for a while, but nobody really liked them. I don't know if they didn't function well or what, but he made them for a few years, and then he kind of Colt got out of the rifle business. Well, actually, Colt was dead by then. Samuel and people that were running the company made those and then got out of them, I think. I believe that was after he died. But anyway, that's what he carries. And this is Rio Bravo. That was this is El Dorado, and then this is Rio Bravo, and they're a lot the same. She does look like Anne Margaret, Tina, and I guess that's why I always thought that. This movie, and I read about this, and they talk about this. These two movies were, I guess, years apart, but they're along the same lines. Dean Martin was John Wayne was the actual sheriff in the town, and Dean Martin was, I guess, his deputy, and he was on a drunk and had been for, I guess, days or weeks. One of the introduction of a movie character kind of was Ricky Nelson down here at the bottom of the page. Oh, Arthur Honey. Oh, if you heard his voice, Chuck, you would know exactly who he is. John says, "Hey, guy, he's back. Love that movie, James Caan, with the double barrel." Yeah, he had the double barrel sawed-off shotgun pistol kind of a thing, mare's leg, because he didn't know how to shoot, so they bought him that shotgun because they figured he could shoot that. He kind of came into the movie throwing a knife, but you couldn't use a knife on everybody. So John Wayne was trying to teach him to shoot, and he couldn't hit anything with a pistol, so they bought him that thing from the old Swede guy. This movie had a lot of stars of that day. I mean, Ricky Nelson, Dean Martin, of course, John Wayne, this young lady back here in the back who went on to be policewoman and many other things in her life. But I noticed she doesn't even get main billing up here on the Angie Dickinson. But she doesn't even get any large billing up here, although she's standing right there. Ward Bond's in this too, and Walter Brennan.
That's him at the bottom.
That's her right there. I guess her name is on there, Angie Dickinson, but it's definitely below the fold, so to speak. But yeah, most people know Walter Brennan. He was in quite a few old westerns. That picture there is actually from the TV show he did called The Sons of Will Sonnet. And yes, Tina, that is Walter Brennan. He played he played the sort of the same part that Arthur Honeycutt played in the other movie as a sort of a sidekick. In this movie, the Real McCoy guy, that's how I always remember him. He was on the Real McCoy. He was kind of goofy in this movie, or kind of a cranky old guy. I guess he was sort of a deputy too. But now in the Guns of Will Sonnet, the TV Western that he was in, I really liked that show because it was about him and at least two of his other sons. And one of his sons had a son who was running from the law, and they were trying to rescue him, basically. But they were all fast with a 6-shooter, so they were all famous for that. And the old man was still the fastest one of the bunch, or something, as I recall. But anyway, another excellent movie, and if you like westerns, that is. And even though years later I saw the El Dorado movie and thought, well, that's just like Rio Bravo. Didn't matter because I really liked this movie. I liked it a lot because of like I said, because of the poem that was in it. Okay, moving on to the next one. And I didn't get a lot of good pictures for this one, and I'm not sure why. I should have put more in here. But Clint Eastwood's Outlaw Josie Wales, and it has to be one of my all-time top 10 favorite movies, not just westerns, but probably movies in general. And it had Chief Dan George in it. It had, I had the names of all these guys written down, and I don't have any of those up here. This guy who was real famous, and this guy down at the bottom, he was the red leg Terrell guy that played the part, and this is from another movie.
That's from Any Which Way But Loose, or one of them.
Yeah, I couldn't find a good picture of him for this.
Right turn, Clyde, where where Clint Eastwood tells the orangutan to bust the guy on the motorcycle?
Let me pull this up so I can name these people. I gotta. Talk to John there a minute about the Audie Murphy, Mark.
I never figured out his infatuation with Sandra Bullock.
Do what now?
I never could figure out his infatuation with Sandra Bullock.
No,
not Sandra Locke.
Sandra Locke, yeah. Okay, it had her in, him in it, Chief Dan George. Bill McKinney is the guy in the helmet down there. He played Redlegs Terrell, is all that Captain Terrell or Redlegs Terrell, because he was part of a group of, I think they were the Missouri Raiders, weren't they, Mark? The Redlegs. Kansas, okay.
He was from Missouri. He was a Southern boy from Missouri, and they were from Kansas. You know, the Jayhawkers. And
yeah, and
the Kansas and Missouri were, you know, one was a slave state, one was free, and they hated each other. And there was a lot of bad, dirty guerrilla combat that happened between them, you know, which is what the whole story was about.
And
because he went to ride with Bloody Bill Anderson.
Right. That's who they rode with.
Don't drink the beer. Hey, guys.
And Chief Dan George, of course, I always liked his part in this movie. You know, he was a real chief. He was Salish. I wasn't sure. I always thought he was a native. You got to be careful about that. Some aren't. But he actually was. And Mikey's from British Columbia, and he grew up over on the coast, and he actually belonged to one of the Salish tribes and was still a chief for them when he passed away. But he's playing Lone Waddy in this movie, and I believe there is a real historical character named Lone Waddy.
Stan Waddy.
Yeah, and he actually fought with the Confederacy, or more or less, during the war, because as he says in this movie, I didn't fight with them neither, and they made my horse fight with them. He's probably pulling a wagon up in Kansas, I bet, was one of his lines.
He never surrendered, but
Right.
they made my horse surrender. They got him pulling a wagon in Kansas now, I
bet. Geraldine Keams was a Little Moonlight. She played a role with that. She was interesting in that she was a captured Indian at a trading post that they took away with them, and she became Lone Waddy's companion. And a famous quote from him was, "If this is TP living, I think I'm going to convert," or something like that.
And he also had a piece of Hard Rock candy that wasn't for eating; it was just for looking through.
Just for looking through. And he had a horn-toed lizard, horn lizard, that he said would tell him which way to go.
And the horned toad said we should go to Texas.
We should go to Texas. And of course, the theme of that part of the movie was because there were a lot of ex-Confederates going to Texas at that time. When that's true, they were going down to Texas or Mexico to get away from all the other Union soldiers and whatnot that had been sent out to bring them in. Most of them being, guerrilla fighters or, not regular army. We think about the surrender in the Civil War being led Appomattox, but really a lot of the forces out in the nether regions, they didn't surrender. Some of them didn't surrender at all, but some of them didn't surrender for quite some time after that. They tried to keep on fighting.
Watch him, Lige. I've seen him do some
things. What I always liked about Josie Wells was something that always drives me nuts when I'm watching a Western like this. Yeah, Johnny was wearing that Abe Lincoln hat because they took the civil and were civilized. He said, then they brought him to Washington.
Endeavor to persevere.
Endeavor to persevere. And they gave them all that coat, the coats and the big hats, and said, "The Indians endeavor to persevere." And he had some great lines in this movie. And the guy up in the right corner, who I can't remember his name right now, he basically talked these guys into turning themselves in for, and this was also something that happened after the war. They got paid a pittance of money to sign out and pledge allegiance to the United States again. In this case, though, it was a trap, and they shot all the guys that did, except Josie Wells and a kid named Jamie, who I saw his picture here. I have his picture pulled up too. I can't remember. He was Sam Bottoms actually played his part.
Murdering scum from Missouri hell.
Well, the lady that played that part was Paula Truman. She played Grandma Sarah. And then Roll Dano was 10 Spot, which was one of the guys that they ran into out at Santa Rio in the little town. When they brought the liquor in, they became the most welcome visitors that had been down there in a long time.
And then Will Sampson was 10 Bears.
Hey, look there, Tina says, John Eastwood movies always have great lines. They do. Chuck thinks the guy in the upper right played the dean in Animal House. Yeah, I think he did. He did a lot of movies like that, I think, later on. I've seen him in all kinds of stuff. He has a real distinctive voice on when
the dean at Faber College.
100 great lines from that movie, Josie. Well, yeah, there's a lot of great lines in it. Red leggers, yep, that's what they called them. And they wore red leggings. They had these red cloth, probably Indian trade cloth or wool. John says, if you get those wounds and bleeding, boy, I'm gonna whip you with a knotted plow line. Yeah, and then the boy says back, fooled them again, didn't we, Josie? When they lay down in the field and tricked them. Yeah, I'm gonna whop you with a knotted plow line. That is a great line. That's a great movie. I have watched this movie many, many times. And I can't believe I can't remember his name or the character's name. Who did I say that was? I figured out who it was a minute ago, I thought. Well, that's funny because I'm looking at the characters of that movie and he's not on the list. I don't understand that. Pretty much everybody else is. Hang on, I got another list pulled up here. Let me see. All right. John Vernon is his name, and he was Fletcher, Captain Fletcher. See if there's anybody else in here. The Rose that was Rose of Santa Rio was played by Joyce Jameson. Will Sampson was in this, and he played the Indian 10 Bears. And I believe that was his last movie performance, if I'm not mistaken, before he passed away. William O'Connell, John Quaid. He has to be kin to the other Quaids.
Buzzard's got to eat, same as a worm.
Buzzard's got to eat, same as a worm. Sheb Woolley was in that. I didn't realize Sheb Woolley was in there. He was one of the Three Stooges, if I'm not mistaken. And Bill McKinney was Captain Redlegs Terrell. He was one of them guys you loved to hate in a good movie. Oh, I know what I was going to say a minute ago. One of the things I liked about Clint Eastwood in this movie and these marauders that he rode with, I guess probably all of them, is they always had extra pistols and things with them, which always made sense to me because they would take them off of dead soldiers and the Union soldiers because they were usually better armed. And he carried at least 4 pistols at all times. And these things were not easy to load. This is before the age of bullets. And you never see them really do it in this movie, but they had to be loaded from the front of the cylinder. And it takes time, and it's not quick and easy. So if I could picked up 10 pistols, I would have had 10 pistols on me, because that way you could have shot a lot longer and not had to worry about trying to reload. Because once you're out on these things, you can't quick load them.
And John, that's a great line.
Yeah, it is. Didn't he tell that to the senator? Don't piss down my back and tell me it's
Yeah,
right.
the guy that was with Terrell.
Yeah, the Union officer that was plotting the whole thing, who was a senator. Notice I didn't put his picture up here. I probably, if I'd gotten to the right page here, I might have should have found some better pictures of some of these guys. But believe it or not, there's a good picture of 10 bears.
What you got there, muskrat? Muskrat ain't no good no more.
Muskrat's no good.
You give me 10 muskrats and 20 beaver, and I'll give you some red cloth.
Yeah, some red cloth. Oh, taking advantage of the natives, buddy.
And here, take this bottle with you while you think it over. That's why.
Yeah, that was the other thing. Get them drunk, and that makes it a lot easier to make a deal. Some other great lines, John, that when Clint Eastwood rode, when they're crossing the Missouri River on the ferry boat, and Clint Eastwood gets his Sharp's rifle out of his sheath or a scabbard on his horse and sights it up there, and he's just sitting there the whole time while the Union's loading up on the ferry boat, and he's pulling them across, and he's yeah,
pull, Lemuel, pull.
And he's saying, why don't he leave? And he's singing, 1 minute he's singing Dixie, and the other minute he's singing Battle Hymn of the Republic. And what Josie Wells said, we got something around here we call the Missouri Riverboat Ride. And he shoots the rope in two, and that riverboat or that ferry boat takes off down the stream. Horses and soldiers coming off both ends and both sides. The Missouri Riverboat Ride. And then later on in the book, in the story, when the Comancheros have caught Lone Waddy and the 4 pilgrims that were traveling in the wagon, he and the Indian girl they'd picked up. Hey there, Teddy. Say hi to everybody. I think Carol must have left. I didn't see. Did anybody see Carol leave, or is she still here? Where you been? Did you get up and get you a bite to eat? We're talking about Westerns. You want to talk about Westerns? Huh? You want to watch a Western on TV? He watches TV with me sometimes. He don't have a lot. There's Karky. There's Carol. She said, hi, Teddy. Well, now he's going to get shy and get back down here and lay down. Why don't you stand back up? No, he said. He grabbed my hand. Anyway, great movie. One of my all-time favorites. Absolutely. I just love that movie. And this is the problem with today's topic. There was just too many to choose from. And here's another favorite. I have to. This is definitely revisionist themed. Came out in the 70s, I believe. Dustin Hoffman is Little Big Man.
I think it was his first role.
That could have been.
And it's his best role.
He and actually
111 years ago when I was 12 years old.
That's him up at the top as Jack Crab. And that's him as an old Jack Crab when he was about 120. He said he was about 120
something years old.
Yeah, when I was 12 years old.
My family was crossing the plains in a covered wagon.
And the guy was there to record his story because he was near death, I guess. And but this is a spoof on some things, but it's actually got a lot of interesting parts to it, and that were truthful, and but that he poked fun at it a little bit. He actually paid a fair bit of reverence to the Indians, although the chief grandfather there, who was also Chief Dan George, he had some funny lines, and of course Dustin Hoffman's character went through many phases as growing up, and this down here in the lower left, I believe, was his religious phase when he was being raised by the the husband, the Reverend somebody, and his wife, who just happened
Mrs. Pembroke.
yeah, Miss Pembroke, who liked to give him a bath for some reason, quite often. He just wanted to do his cameo and let us all adore him. Yeah, probably. I'm here listening. Oh, Teddy, you mean? Yeah. He's like that. But that was one phase. Then he had a drunk phase, which I believe he's coming out of up here at the top or after it because he's just got his long johns on. There's one I didn't put in here. He found his long lost sister who had been taken by the Indians when their family was massacred or killed, and she turned out to be a big woman. Yeah, and she taught him how to become a gunfighter in his gunfighter period, and taught him how to go snake eyed.
Throw up three.
Yeah, throw up three. Who was he shooting with in that? Was that supposed to be who was the dead man's hand?
Wild Bill Hickok.
Was it? I think it was Hickok he was shooting against in that. And they were throwing up bottles or balls or something, glass balls. I don't know. But he said, throw up three.
Well, that was when his sister was training him.
Okay.
She was throwing bottles up, and she said, "Why Hickok himself can't hit three."
Yeah, that's right. That's where Hickok came into it.
But he was with Hickok when Hickok got killed.
Oh, that's right, he was. In fact, that's what knocked him out of his gunfighter phase, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And into his drunk phase. I believe his drunk phase came after that.
Well, his drunk phase came after his wife and his wives got killed at when the sky wasn't blue anymore.
Yeah. Saying
grass didn't grow and the sky wasn't blue. But there's little, what was his name? Little Horse?
Little Bear, I think.
No, the one at the bottom. The one that had soft furs.
Well, I'm going to get to that. Maybe. I had him pulled up too.
It's Little Horse.
Might be Little Horse. I thought this guy up here was a Little Bear, though.
He was Younger Bear.
Younger Bear. And he was a contraire. Now, everybody probably thought this was a joke in the movie, but this was actually a real 761st Tank Battalion. Oh, a movie. I'm going to watch that. That's tomorrow. That's a history special about the Black Panthers, the real Black Panthers.
Morgan Freeman's hosting that, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. That's tomorrow night. Anyway, this guy these spots usually represented hailstones, but a contraire did everything backwards from what you thought he ought to do. And this guy in the movie, this character always was in competition with Little Big Man because Little Big Man seemed to be Chief Dan George's favorite versus him. And he just drove this guy crazy. And he was a contraire, and I believe he was a dog soldier too, wasn't he? And towards the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And I know what it was. The Little Big Man had saved his life. early in their lives.
And they
when
didn't
were
like each other from the get-go.
Well, that made him little big man, all the time until the battle of the Little Bighorn, where he saved little big man's life. He carried him off the battlefield, and that cinched that they were equal after that, even. But then we also had this character down here in the bottom, Little Horse, and basically Little Horse was a Cheyenne man who
Himani.
had,
He was a Himani.
yeah, which means he chose to live as a woman, and they actually did this. And this was accepted within the tribe. Occasionally that this would happen. So basically today we would say this is a gay man who, maybe was transgender or maybe just a cross dresser or something. But he when a brave or a man took that role, then they did everything the women did. They cooked, they sewed, they chewed on the buffalo hides, they built their teepees, they put their lodges up, took them down, and all that stuff. They took on the role of women. They didn't go out hunting, they didn't go out fighting, they didn't go on the warpath. They were considered a woman in the tribe. And a lot of people, I suspect, didn't believe that was a true part. And yes, they probably exaggerated it on here, but it really was a thing. Some of these native tribes had, customs that we didn't realize, and maybe sometimes made them look a little better than us anyway. But I don't. But anyway, and his line in the movie that we used to always quote was "Go ahead, Mark. You know how to do it."
The one with the
Soft furs.
He told Little Big Man they just reconnected.
Yeah.
And he said, "You could come to my teepee, big man, and lay on soft furs."
Yeah. He had a thing for Little Big Man, but Little Big Man never did go for it. And lay on soft furs.
He can come over and lay on soft furs.
And this at the top was the wife that Little Big Man had taken when he was with the tribe, and their young'un who got killed at the Sand Creek massacre. So I believe it was Sand Creek. I don't remember if that's what they called it, but
well, it was supposed to represent that.
Yeah, where they killed, the cavalry came in and killed everybody, men, women, and children. There weren't many braves there. It was mostly old men and women, and they just killed them all. There was a line, I don't know if it was in this movie or if I read this somewhere, but they killed the youngins because they said nits make lice. In other words, the nits are the baby or larval lice are referred to as nits, and so they were killing them all. And unfortunately,
there's Custer.
And then there's Custer, who they're Cheyenne, and how do you say that? They're Cheyenne braves and warriors, and they'll make a greasy spot out of you. And they did. You're muted.
Sorry.
You were muted. What were you saying?
He came riding up in that one scene, and he's gargling water out of his canteen.
Yeah.
And he tells the captain that he's with that he had poisoning of the gonads.
Yeah.
Celibacy of the saddle. You wouldn't understand that, young captain.
And he hired Little Big Man as a mule skinner.
Yeah.
And Little Big Man in this movie had run into Custer a couple of times in different phases of his life. I think maybe even when he was living with the Indians early on, he may have. But he ran into him a couple of times, and I think it seems like Custer was looking for him to get him or have him arrested. It was one reason he said he was a mule skinner, but maybe I'm wrong about that. He ended up being a scout for Custer, and in the movie he tried to tell Custer not to go down there. Don't go down to the village at the little, the Greasy Grass River, or as we call it, the Battle of Bighorn, Little Bighorn, because they'll make a greasy spot out of you, and that's exactly what ended up happening. I just also read the Journey of Crazy Horse book, and they go into a lot of detail about the Battle of the Little Bighorn and the stories that have finally came out years later. Interesting factoid about that: the Native Americans were the only, of course, living witnesses of the Little Bighorn battle, since nobody survived it except Jack Crabb. And some of the stories have come out. The natives wouldn't talk about it because for a long time, they were afraid they would be punished if they, told the story and told that they were there. And then over the years, some of the stories came out. A couple of them are, sometimes the tribes have argued about that. I think the guy that read my book and wrote that book was, oh crap, what was his name? And he's got one version of that, and then there's the other guys that have their version. The family, you know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about the story of Little Bighorn and the battle that, basically only the Native Americans know what happened, because they were the only ones there.
Well, I mean, they're at the actual Last Stand Hill. They're the only ones that know.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Because Benteen and Reno survived, and most of their boys.
Yeah, and most of the time when we talk about that in history, and we refer to it as the Custer Massacre, and everybody seems to forget that those guys were there too. They were just not in the same spot.
And it wasn't a massacre at Custer. They were attacking the village.
It was a battle.
It was a successful defense of their village, which stretched for miles. And the Crows told them, don't go down there.
Yeah, the Crows were scouts for the army at that time, because they were like the enemies of the Cheyenne and the, I guess,
10,000 ponies on the hillsides. And
yeah,
that's a big old bunch of population down there.
Well, shoot, I was trying to find that guy's name.
Which guy?
Oh, the book, The Journey of Crazy Horse. Who wrote that book? He's an Indian, or
Joseph Marshall.
Marshall, yeah, Marshall. This was Marshall's version, and there's a couple of other versions. That's why I was trying to remember, what's that family's name? The other ones.
The Clown family.
Yeah, the Clown family.
Yeah, Edward Clown.
And they tell one version of the story. I think they claim to be kin to Crazy Horse, don't they?
Yeah, and they are.
Oh, yeah, okay. But the stories differ somewhat, and so I don't know. I guess we'll never really know the whole story. But if you're a fan of history, and if you ever read National Geographic back in I don't know if it was the 70s or the 80s when that fire went through out there and burned all that off. The Little Bighorn battlefield had basically gone mostly untouched I say untouched. They'd moved bodies, and I'm sure people probably pilfered around that area before it was a park. But once it became protected, they hadn't really looked at everything, and a fire ran through, a really big fire, and it burned everything off. It burned all the undercover, the brush, the grass, turned it into just a blank field, basically. And suddenly they were able to find all these artifacts and remains and, arrows and bullets and see where people actually died versus just, kind of guessing or where they thought they died years later. Because they put stakes in the ground after the battle, supposedly, when they picked up bodies or whatever they did. But even then, the battle, as it unfolded, was never real clear. And it didn't actually just happen in one spot. They were actually down over the hill, getting ready to cross the river, down the creek down there, the Little Bighorn, the Greasy Grass. And they came out and said, no, you're not going to do that. So they started running back up the hill, and some made it, some didn't make it. And they probably never made it up to the high top of the hill. any of them. But they were just really outnumbered and outgunned, as it turned out. Custer didn't want to believe that, but he was of the
They
mindset that
think he got shot like crossing the river, and that he may have made it to the top of the hill still breathing, but probably not. And
but died there.
they crossed the river. His bunch crossed the river and made it up to Last Stand Hill. And they marked where all the bodies were at, and they put headstones up where every human they found up there.
Yeah.
And then Reno was way down the river at kind of on Crazy Horse's end of the encampment. And he tried to cross the river, and they beat him back, and so they ended up going and, you got your shoes. Better take off.
Yeah, that's the part we don't remember is Reno's part and what's name's part, and they were separate. And they basically caught Reno before he crossed the river. That he got spotted. Yeah, with the pack mules and stuff, which Custer had sent a guy off to get the packs, and because he had some field artillery with him, or at least one, maybe a Gatling gun or a small cannon.
Period. Once they engaged, he lived such a short time period. It just, they said it was over in just minutes. They killed them all.
Right. That's the whole thing. You see in movies where they're just riding around killing people and they're all standing there fighting. That's not how it happened. It was all said and done in just a few minutes. The whole thing.
They chased him to the top of the hill and then overran him, and it was done. According to the people that were actually there.
Crazy. What?
I said, according to the people that were actually there, it didn't take very long.
And I believe that because they were outnumbered and, like I said, outgunned. The Indians had more weapons, rifles, and pistols by that time than they thought, for one thing. And natives on horseback, especially those guys, could shoot a bow from their horse about as effectively as they could ever shoot a rifle, much less a pistol. I mean, you really didn't have a chance they wouldn't have had a chance against them even if they were just shooting bows and arrows, I don't think. Because they could, those guys could put 3 arrows in somebody just about before they could say, ouch. Anyway, but that movie, and there actually was a little big man, and I believe he was Sioux, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was an Oglala man. He's the one that was holding Crazy Horse's arms when he got stabbed at Fort Robinson.
Yeah, that's right.
And I see every now and again, I see where they put his photo up and say it is Crazy Horse. And I bet that just goes over real big.
Oh, I bet.
Because he was never photographed according to,
supposedly,
all the sources.
Nobody.
He had one drawing made of him, and that was it.
Yeah, if they say it's a picture of Crazy Horse, he may have been in a group photo somewhere along the way, but if he was, nobody knew who it was.
Well, he just kept himself away from white people.
He just didn't like us. Bottom line was he had no use for white people. He figured out real quick that we were taking everything they had. Mark grew up as a fan of Crazy Horse, I guess you could say. Mark, you knew about much or more about him than I ever dreamed of. Still do.
I've read all of his books. I lost you.
Am I gone? Mark's gone. Can anybody else see me? I went blank on mine just for a brief second. Brenda, can you see me on your phone or your computer? Tim to earth, Tim to earth. Okay, Tina sees me. Carol sees me. Brenda never has responded. We lost Mark. Yeah, we did. And sometimes when he goes out, he's out. He's gone. Or he might have got unplugged. It's hard to say. We'll see if he gets back for him. But, you know, I'm winding down anyway. I think I have a couple more things here, but that's about it for today. I can't. You know, I just couldn't do them all. Earth to Tim, we're here. How's that song? How's the song go? Earth to Major Tom. Anyway, the Battle of the Little Bighorn probably will remain something of an enigma forever, but I still believe Custer was kind of asking for it. He was told that there were too many Indians. Pluto's here too. Welcome, Pluto. Teddy, you got anything else you want to say? You want to say hi to anybody while we got a moment here? Huh? Mark's not on, so you want to talk? You want to get up? What's on your face? You got spots. I never saw that before. Sister hadn't been marking your face up, has she? Can you guys still see the slide? You think Teddy needs a snack? He would take one if I got him one out. I promise you. But I ain't getting up over there to get him. Tina says, I agree. Custer was asking for what he got. Too bad he dragged all those good. Yeah, it is. And there were some with him that tried to tell him not to do it. Like Mark said, the scouts that were with him, the Crow scouts tried to tell him not to do it. And he was going, everything I've read from the military side of it, and while there's a lot of questions about that too, because the survivors, some people blame them for not being there. If they had, I think they'd all died, but you never know. Oh shoot, what was I getting ready to say? I believe the Crow scouts, some of them died with him, but I think some of them rode away because they weren't going to go down there. They just knew better. And for some reason, there had been scouting rumors or thoughts that the village would be much smaller than it was. But Crazy Horse, his influence, he'd been bringing in, tribes from all over to join them in this last fight to reclaim their sovereignty over that area and hang on to what they considered their homeland. And so it was turned out it was a big village. I've read different things, but I've read the most popular theory seems to be that there could have been as many as 5,000 warriors there or 5,000 laws. So there were a lot of people there. It was a big, big, big encampment. Well, I'm going to go to the next slide. I don't know if Mark's going to make it back or not. I know people will have something else to go do. And I hate that because Lonesome Dove is one of his favorites. So I'll have to bring this back when he gets back or next time. Lonesome Dove was definitely an epic movie. I loved Robert Duvall's part. And this was the first movie, and I got to remember his name. I couldn't remember it last night either, and I don't think I found it online. It's the first movie I really saw him in that I remembered. Let's see if I can find the cast. Of course, it had Robert Duvall, Tommy Lee Jones, Danny Glover, Robert Urich, which I hated because that was one. I mean, I liked him. I always liked him as an actor and a character, and he met a bad end in this movie. Ricky Schroeder was in it as a young man. Angelica Houston was in it. Chris Cooper is who I was trying to think of. He was July Johnson. Barry Corbin was in it. I forgot about him too. Tim Scott. Let me make sure Mark's not showed back up. Nope. Anyway, great book, great story. They did a good job on this one. The ones they made after this, maybe not so much. So I've seen this a couple of times, but Mark has probably seen it dozens of times. So it's what he can do a much better job of talking about it than I can. But it was good. I tell you how powerful this movie was. If you see the hat that Gus is wearing, and Gus is played by Robert Duvall, that hat is called a Gus hat or a Gus crease, or they make cowboy hats now, and it's one of the most popular selling cowboy hats out there that are made like Gus's. Yeah, I don't have a copy of Lonesome Dove. I want to get a copy of it eventually and have it a DVD or a Blu-ray, because I'd like to be able to watch the whole thing again at my leisure. And because I haven't seen it in quite a while. I know Mark's got it. I know that's one of the reasons he's seen it so many times. The only scene in that movie that I thought was really misdone or was not correct was the one where they fell in where the kid fell in the water and the snakes got him. It was like a swarm of snakes. That's made up. I mean, that's not something that happened. I don't know. That just always drove me crazy. I can't remember her name, and I don't see her in here. The girl, the Robert Duvall's love interest, and others at one time. Because as Robert Duvall would say, she was a whore. But she traveled with him for a while. They left her at Angelica Houston's place. She had been Jake's girlfriend for a while, but Robert Duvall always had a thing for her, even though she was a lot younger than him. Danny Glover was in it, and one of the things the movies for a long time didn't really depict was the fact that African Americans played a significant role in the West. There was a lot of black cowboys, but you don't hear a lot about that. But slaves had actually been running away before they were emancipated and going west, and basically they were cowboys out west long before long before they were emancipated. I don't know if this movie was the last thing Robert Urich did. He died. Diana Lane that might be her. I didn't think this was her name, but yeah, it is. It was Lorena Wood. That was her name. That is it. They just called her Lorena. So that is right. Tina, thank you. Anyway, Robert Urich died, I think, not too much long after this. I'm not sure. He either had some rare blood disease or he had cancer of some sort. I can't remember. But he passed away much too early. I just liked him. I thought he was a good actor, or the roles he played at least were good. And this got me to True Grit. I ought to save this. I'm going to run through these now because it is getting late. I'm sure I've got a Little League baseball game on. True Grit's hard to do without doing both movies. I'm a fan of the original. but I'm also a fan of the newer one, and I didn't think I would like it till I watched it a few months back, and it was good. Uh, I don't know. I thought both of them had their moments, definitely. And this is from the first one. That's Miss Darby playing Maddie from Yarnell County, Arkansas. Robert Duvall's also in this one. And Glenn Campbell played the Texas Ranger in this version. And John Wayne has I don't know if it showed it in that picture. Let me back up one. No, that's not it. Yeah, the Jeff Bridges version, he doesn't have that big handled rifle, but I'm pretty sure he did in True Grit. You can't see it very well, but he spins it around. He twirls it a lot. And this is one of my favorite scenes from the movie, and maybe why I like this version. But he called out Ned Pepper and his gang, who Ned Pepper was played by Robert Duvall, and said they called him. They said he said something to him about turning themselves into the law, and he'd arrest them, and he could take them back to wherever they were from, so they could be hung proper. And they said those were mighty big words for a one-eyed fat man, and that just made him mad. So he put the reins in his teeth and grabbed a gun in each hand and said, grab your guns. How do you say that? Grab your guns, you SOBs, or something like that. I can't remember how he said it. And rode into him, and his horse ended up dying, which he was fussing about his horse. He said that's the first time he ever let him down. But that was sort of the climatic end, almost the climatic end of the movie. There was a little bit more after that. Pam Darby had fallen down a pit into a pit of rattlesnakes, and she needed saving. And plus, the guy she was after, not Ned Pepper. This was Ned Pepper. She was actually out there and had hired Rooster to find the guy that killed her father. And I can't remember his name. Fill your hand, you son of a bitch. That's what he said. I may have some more slides of this because there was a lot to talk about. Yeah, I probably just got that. Okay. So this is going on to the next one, and the characters are playing this. They're playing the same people, just different guys doing it. And Jeff Bridges did do a good Rooster Cogburn. Some people say a better Rooster Cogburn, but Rooster Cogburn, the first movie there, True Grit, was the one John Wayne won his one and only Emmy, or not Emmy, but Academy Award for. And so I think that's going to probably always be my favorite, but I really do like both of them. And there's always an interesting thing, a funny thing, or Maddie always she had like a flour sack with a string pulled up, tight, cinch string at the top, and that held her worldly possessions pretty much. And one of the things she had gotten from her father was this Dragoon pistol, which was one of the first successful pistols that Samuel Colt built. And he originally built them for the Texas Republic's Army / Rangers and that sort of thing. And I don't know if you've ever picked one of those things up, but they weigh between 4 and 5 pounds. That's one of the heaviest handguns I've ever carried. Well, I've got a couple of hunting guns that are longer than that are heavier, but they're heavy. I don't know how these little ladies, I don't mean that in any derogatory way. I'm really surprised they could hold them up and shoot them well. I mean, I don't know how well they did shoot them, but I can't hardly hold one without shaking it. They're heavy. And especially if they're loaded, because that adds, several ounces of lead to the front. They're 44 caliber and 6 shots, and they were reputed to be able to load them as strong as almost as strong as a 44 Magnum today. but they turned out that they really couldn't handle that. Now they made some new versions of it, modern versions of it that had better steel, and they could do that. But anyway, it was a big giant pistol for such a small character to be holding up and playing with. And I can't remember this guy's name, but I think he was Ned Pepper in this version. Like I said, I've got all these names somewhere. "2010 True Grit." Let me see here. I'm going to remember these names. Okay. Matt Dillon's part, the Texas Ranger part, he was LeBouf or LeBuff. Haley Steinfeld was Maddie Ross. It seems to me like when she played this part, she was really young. She's not old now, but I just remember people talking about how young she was. I guess she was over 10, 14 or so, but, she was small. Lucky Ned Pepper was Barry Pepper, who I don't know much about anyway. Tom Chaney was Josh Brolin, and he's been in a lot of Westerns over the years that I liked. I don't remember what I was going to say about him. He's the one that shot her dad. So she was actually after Josh Brolin, and the rest of them were more or less after Ned Beatty, or not Ned Beatty, but Pepper, Lucky Ned Pepper's gang, which wasn't too lucky. Good movies, though. Good movies. How do you play a part better than a person who created the part? Well, that's a good question. And like I said, I don't think they were better. That's why I like the old one. But if you watch the old one, Glenn Campbell played. He kind of played he was playing a Texas Ranger. He and Matt Damon both, but the character was. I think they overacted or overdid the character in both cases. I mean, Matt Damon probably did a little better job, but they both kind of made him look a bit like a buffoon, and maybe that was how it was written. And that is the end, the smoking gun, if you will. I'll put that in there, hopefully. And I told you what it was, so nobody got the guess. I forgot. But that is the end of today's slide presentation. I know everybody's probably happy for that. And let me get that off out of my way here and see what's being said. Well, nothing right now. Anyway, guys, that was today's show. I'll have to see if I can get a hold of Mark and see what happened. I'm sure somebody cut him off, and I don't look as clear over here as I should. I'm changing settings here just to see what happens. I can't go to full high def because I have to buy into a higher program. I'm thinking about changing my channel stuff to maybe one of the other live cam providers like Streamlabs, or I know there's several out there that are better. They just cost more. Well, thank you, Tina. I appreciate that. I worked hard on that. And like I said, it became harder because there's just so many. And when I grew up, well, and Chuck knows, I mean, that was Westerns are what was on TV when we were growing up. That they were still dominating the TV landscape. There were other shows out there, but the shows and the famous shows were almost all Westerns. So, I grew up with them. I'm in that generation where the Western genre is, part of my background is probably not the right word, but it's definitely in my bones. Now, the sad part about it is, hey, Cherie, welcome. The sad part about that is along with having been good entertainment in many ways, they also got a lot of things wrong back then. A lot of things were overblown. A lot of things were not factual. Rarely did the movies give Native American Indians the treatment they should have gotten. In fact, a lot of stereotypes were created by watching movies and TV shows where they were often made to look, you know. Now, don't get me wrong; they were native. They lived outdoors. They were, you know. Well, I won't say they were dirty because they weren't. They actually stayed. They were very clean people in that regard. They're often depicted as dirty. They do have a problem with drinking. I mean, not drink alcohol is a problem on all the reservations with all Native Americans. Unfortunately, white traders kind of caused that. They started that dang words are popping in and out of my head today. That tradition, if you will, of trading liquor to the Indians to take advantage of them. Yeah, Tina, that's right. They were movies, not documentaries. But back there when we were growing up, Tina, there weren't documentaries about that. I mean, you had, if you didn't read and get the right books, I'm going to sign off and say bye, everybody. Where are you going? There's a squirrel, real squirrel. Anyway, they didn't always portray things, you know, in that regard. They exaggerated and did that sort of. I mean, they just blew things up that weren't always true. And a lot of the characters, while based on real characters, didn't do a lot of things. You know, we take, some people take for granted that they did do. It's a little bit, Tina. It's a little bit like some people who watch Yellowstone. A lot of people think Yellowstone is it's joked about in rodeo and cowboy circles that, you know, they tell people that, you know, it's a TV show, not a documentary, because evidently a lot of people show up out there to see the sets or where they film it, and they just assume that the whole thing is, you know, filmed on an active working ranch or something, and it's not. I've heard several times announcers talk about it and say, you know, this is not a documentary, people. This is just a TV show. So some people tend to take things a little bit for granted, and I think we did as kids. I mean, Billy the Kid was a punk, basically, and you know, there were a lot of movies that made Billy the Kid a hero, and he honestly never was one. Please don't tell me that I love the Yellowstone. I live my life by that. Well, you can. That's okay, Mike. You choose what you believe and what you don't believe. I mean, that's okay if you do. I don't know anything about the show because I don't watch the show. It's never interested me. It's Mike, you won't cover up your ears a minute, Mike, so you don't hear this. And Diana, don't you tell him what I'm going to say. But I mean, it's a soap opera kind of thing to me, and I'm not interested in probably the last something like that I wore was Dallas came on. And when it first came on, everybody was just, you know, nuts about Dallas, and I watched it, and then one night I'm like watching it, and it hits me out. This is a soap opera. It's in Dallas. It's about oil company people, but they're doing all the same things they do in soap operas. So to me, that's what Yellowstone reminds me of. So I just never have watched it. So I really can't say it's good or it's bad. But there are a lot of people that think there's a lot. And I mean, you know, that place exists out there in Montana or Wyoming, wherever they film it. I mean, you can go out there. I think you can go out there when they're not filming and take a tour of the sets and the facility, but that's all it is. I mean, it's not really a ranch, not working ranch anyway. Sorry. I'm thinking about watching 1883. That's got Sam Elliott in it. That has potential. I really like Sam Elliott playing the cowboy roles, and And that's the thing. There's a whole bunch of movies I didn't even get to. There's several movies made out of Louis L'Amour books that I think are excellent and rank right up there in the top 10 or so cowboy movies, westerns. Conager is a great movie. Tom Selleck plays another great movie. What's it? Shoot, not Tom Horn. God, I'm awful today. I'm gonna have to either drink more coffee or drink less coffee. I'm not remembering. Who just passed away? Tom Selleck just passed away. I was thinking about watching that and trying it. Or is that the one that Harrison Ford's in? I know that Sam Elliott's in one of them, and I think Sam Elliott makes a great cowboy. So I'm thinking about giving that one a try just to see. Sam Elliott just passed away. Oh, be still, my heart! Don't tell me that. Well, I know that's BS because he's been in a movie. Apparently, there was a hoax. No, they're saying he's still alive here, but they are saying there was a hoax about his death going around. People were, and he's been married to Catherine Ross since 1984. That's pretty good. Hollywood area marriages that last that long, pretty solid. That means, Brenda, he's been married almost as long as we have. Almost. Well, 8 years, 7 years, something. He's got a great voice for that sort of thing. And he just makes a good cowboy. I don't know if he has cowboying background. Yeah, it was another thing about the old westerns that came out years ago. Even Roy Rogers, some of his sidekicks, the early movies with John Wayne that had Ben Johnson. Mark alluded to that a little bit, but a lot of those guys that played those parts were actual either real cowboys and real life, because cowboys do still exist, or they were rodeo cowboys at least. And so they actually knew how to play a part. They knew how cowboys acted and how things that cowboys did or maybe didn't do. But you don't have a lot. I don't think you have a lot of that today. I think that's, if you do a Western type movie, you're bringing somebody in to, kind of play the part raw. You're depending on his research, and, if he gets out and maybe hangs out with cowboys for a year so he can. Oh, he just had a birthday on the 8th. Okay. Thank you, Shirley. But I still like a lot of Western. I have probably more than several Westerns over here on my shelf. Like I said, the Louis L'Amour Westerns, the Sackett's, Shadow Riders. Oh, crap. What is the name of that one? Tom Selleck did it, and many, many years ago, another actor did it. It wasn't Gregory Peck. I'll have to do that one. I'll get to him again. I'll have to do that one. But Mark is probably closer to a modern cowboy than a lot of people that call themselves cowboys, Tina. We call rodeo, some of the rodeo guys cowboys, and most of them aren't really cowboys. Some of them are, and some of them actually live that life, but most of them are just cowboys on the weekends when they're doing rodeos. They basically spend their time driving up and down It's not a Western, but Sam was in a wonderful movie with Cher and Eric. So, oh yeah, Mask. Yeah, he was. And that I never saw Mask. Brenda probably has. That was supposed to be a great movie. I remember him being in that. I mean, I've probably seen bits and pieces of it, but I've never seen the whole thing. Yeah, I think it was too. I think she got nominated or maybe won some awards for that movie. Mark actually gets out and works locally with some of the ranchers there to round up cattle. Brand cattle. He ropes a little bit. He's not like a professional roper, but he does do what he needs to do to work off his horse. Last time he was going to work cattle was this spring when he was going to go out and help them work bring in all the calves and brand them and castrate the bulls and whatnot they do when they're young like that. And he told him he could work and do all they needed him to do as long as but the only thing he was going to do was stuff he could do from the back of his horse. If he could work from the back of his horse, he'd go. If he had to get down and do it, he wasn't going to participate anymore because he's unfortunately a little bit like me. He's sort of beat up, and he's had more broken bones probably than I have. And he's got some of the same injuries I've got. He doesn't have the back problem, but he's got torn groin muscles, and that give him a lot of trouble when he's trying to ride. And I think his knees aren't as good as they used to be. Believe it or not, he and I both used to hoof it in the mountains quite a bit, and we moved pretty quick. But I don't think either one of us can do that now. I'm sure he can outrun. He can outdo me. So the barrel still get him, but that's the way it is. But he's a good man. I've known him for a lot of years. I've seen him grow up to the man he is today, and we don't agree on everything, but we certainly are. We're definitely brothers. Mark's one of those guys, one of those friends that when you meet them, it doesn't matter what your ages are or where you're from, you click, and you suddenly, things just make sense, and you think alike. And we used to hunt together a lot, and it was funny because we could hunt apart, but seemed to know what each other was doing and thinking, and we'd end up back together, or we'd both be doing the things we needed to do at a certain time, and it just doesn't happen a lot. I was lucky, and he and I became very tight during that time period. I'm glad. I met his dad first, and I'd always wanted to build a muzzleloading rifle and have a flintlock, like David Crockett, or Daniel Boone, but I didn't know anybody that knew anything about that sort of thing. And then all of a sudden one day, Mark's dad shows up with a little store downtown Jonesboro, and that's exactly what he did. So I ended up buying parts from him to build a rifle, and that is my best rifle, my favorite rifle. It's sitting over here it's a 54 caliber trapper's rifle, or it looks similar to a Hawken, but it's not a Hawken style. But it's the best shooting thing I've ever had. Shoot straight. I've won several matches with that rifle. Anyway, that's how I came to meet Mark. And Mark was the kid. I spent time outdoors and in the creeks and doing all that kind of stuff and loved nature even back then. But Mark's the kid who I met that got to do even more of that than I did, and he knew more about it than I did back at that time. And he absorbs everything, it seems like. And honestly, he was a younger man, but I admired him almost from the beginning because of his sense of right and wrong, I guess, and his abilities, the abilities to do things, and we just kind of merged and meshed. I think he would agree. He might not, but he's often said that, you know, I'm the one of the few people he'll pick up the phone for. So sometimes he just don't want to talk to anybody, but he's often told me that I'm the only guy he could talk to anytime. So that means a lot to me. And he's very smart, Tina. He was a really good, savvy wildlife manager. I got to do that work to a degree, but we never got to finish up a lot of the things because we'd pass them on to another group, you know, local or the state agency would finish something up, or they'd take over after we did it. And Mark got to see things like that through, and he battled a lot for, you know, the right way to manage land and animals. And I was that guy too in my job, where I tried to fight for things and do things in a way that I thought was morally correct, or, you know, the way things should have worked. And I had some friends that did too, but, you know, so we were, in many ways, our careers mirrored, but my career was something I'd always wanted to do when I was a kid. I might have probably told this before, but I kind of got talked out of going to school to be in that field when I was in high school. So I went on to work on airplanes instead, because that was another interest I had then and have now. But what I wanted to do was go to school and do what Mark did. And I went out with him and spent time at college, in college with him, following him around, going to the library in New Mexico and places like that, in Laramie, Wyoming. And just, I told myself one day, and told Brenda, if it ever comes to this, I'm going to go back to school and get the degree in this that I always wanted. So that's kind of how I got where I am today. You know, I tried to, Mike, and it didn't always work out, but sometimes it did. And Mark had a reputation for that too. I've learned out in his neck of the woods with both other agencies and within his own, that he was the guy that if he was gonna stand up and fight for something in a group, it was probably going to be him. And I've always been proud of him for that too. I mean, I say that like he's but we're brothers. I mean, if there were ever two people that were brothers that weren't actual brothers, it'd have to be me and him. I feel that way anyway. I think he does too. I can't believe the years we spent apart for so long. I think both of us had something missing, and we finally got back together. And it just happened to be because we both retired about the same time and said, "This is hell with this. We gotta get back together." So anyway, that's a whole nother story. I don't want to both bore you with that and make you think it's some kind of fairy tale. It's not, but it's real. And you know, I'm proud to know him and proud to call him brother. Yeah, that's the way it goes, Mike. You know, you fight the good fight, and sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But I just never could stand not to at least make an effort, just because. Well, thank you, Tina. I appreciate that. And Mike also. That means a lot to me coming from you guys, because you guys sit here and actually listen to us palaver on weekends. And I know sometimes we go over the same stuff again and again, but we try to cover a lot of ground. And since Mark started coming on with me, I almost can't imagine doing the show without him. I think you two guys were lucky to have found each other. Friendships like that are rare. They're hard to find. I mean, I went to school with a lot of kids, a lot of other people, and they're some of them are still friends, but I've never had a friend like Mark. Well, thank you, Carol. I appreciate that. We should do a movie. And in fact, I just saw something very recently. It's on YouTube already, and I was going to tell Mark this because I just saw it. Somebody might be beating us to it. Somebody else is doing some movie about something or videos about something like that, and I thought, God, that's Mark and I should have done that because we could have done that the same thing they were doing because we've done a lot of those things and been a lot of those places and would be more than willing to go back to them or go, do them for the first time for that matter. And thanks, Mike. I think Mark said that one time to me, and I'm gonna be ashamed to say I've never watched that movie. I need to. I've read about it, and I've seen parts. Again, I see a lot of bits and pieces, and I pick up trivia from bits and pieces, but I don't always see the whole movie. So I think Brenda would like for me to stop doing that because she likes to watch movies. I'm trying to do more of it. Yeah, thanks, guys. You're gonna make me blush here in a minute, and I hate he's not in here to hear your accolades because he deserves them. He's a good man. I watched him raise his daughter when she was little, and they had a great relationship. They still do. She lives a long ways from him, but they're still very connected. And she was a smart kid growing up because she hung around with her dad, and she's very smart like him, and she had him as a teacher. And you're rare that I didn't have that. I wish I'd had my dad wasn't into that kind of stuff. I'm not knocking my dad, but sometimes you get lucky as a kid and you meet a sensei, the Japanese might call it, or a teacher that kind of goes with you down through life to teach you things. The book The Old Man and the Boy would be an example of that, written by Robert Roark. And he talks about how his grandfather taught him how to handle, bird dogs and go fishing and have crab bulls and, do all kinds of things on the North Carolina coast. If you've never read that book, I highly recommend it. And then there's a follow-up to it called The Old Man's Boy Gets Older. And it's very good too. I have the movie on DVD. I'll send it to you in the mail. Oh, well, you don't have to do that. If I can find it, you could borrow it. Oh, okay. I would like it back when I come home, come fix your ceiling. That's a deal, Mike. But you don't have to do that. I can find it. I might be able to pick it up on something. It may even be on the internet. I may be able to watch it. I've been trying to watch movies from that angle when I can. And I got a date August 31st on my phone. I don't know what that means. I know Brenda's got a birthday coming up in a few days. She's not on here, so we can talk about her. She'll be old as me then. Today's the 19th. Her birthday is Tuesday, in fact. And there's two ways I know that. One, I see what day it is today, and add. But Kelly's birthday was last Monday. So Brenda's birthday is this coming Tuesday, and then Jennifer's birthday is the following Wednesday. They are all exactly 8 days apart in the month of August. And unfortunately, Jennifer shares her birthday with the day that Princess Diana was killed. So which part, Tina? You hate when what happens? Birthdays? Well, Mike, I wish I could say that was true, but I don't know if Kelly was at Disney World for her birthday last week. I'm sure she had lots of birthday cake. I know one of the ways she celebrated was she drank she drank around the world at Epcot. I know she did that. And I'd be willing, if I know my daughter, I'm sure she had birthday cake somewhere on the property. Yes, it's birthday season at my place, Carol. August is a very busy month for me in that regard, or used to be anyway. Brenda and I don't celebrate birthdays much anymore, but we still try to, make it a little bit of a big deal with the girls, just because you have a date on your calendar that you don't know what it's for. Oh, yes, I hate when that happens too. And it was the 31st. It's got to be. I know I've got a doctor's appointment coming up in the next month, and that may be what it is. Well, I don't have anything written down that day. That's weird. Strange that it would pop up and yet I don't see it. I don't see it. Oh, Dougie Fresh posted something. I'll have to watch that. Little League softball game has probably started. That could be part of what it is. And so I got to watch the Little League. I'm not sure who's playing today. Unfortunately, I think today has some elimination games. Tennessee won yesterday, in a good fashion. Tennessee's the only team this year that has a girl on their team, and she is a real ball player. Last night she stole base, and through her own quick, fast speed, she's fast. And thinking she made it to home on an infield hit, or not an infield hit, but we went to the outfield, but it's not normally you wouldn't. But she was as soon as she knew it was good to go, and made it home. And they didn't catch her, so I can't wait to get back up and see her play some more. I think she's a pitcher, which has happened once before with the young lady I was talking about last week or the other night, where the night Dave Phil was here talking, Monet Davis. So I'm wanting to see her pitch and see if she's any good. They say she is. Her coach says she's not a girl, she's just a baseball player, which I like. I like to watch them play softball, but I think every once in a while there's a girl that comes along that can play baseball with the guys. And if they can, they ought to get a chance to. I think I should buy a birthday cake just for fun. It has to be some. Well, Diana, yes, it's somebody's birthday somewhere. A friend of mine and I used to stop by the grocery store. There was a grocery store around here that made really good cakes, and we'd stop by every once in a while and celebrate an unbirthday. I mean, it's my unbirthday. I'm sure it's your if it's not your birthday, it must be your unbirthday. So, go get you some cake. Have a tea party with the White Rabbit and the Mad Hatter and all those guys. Mike thinks it's a good idea. All right, guys, I'm going to go. I kept everybody here. Thank you guys for hanging around. I do really appreciate it. I thank you for all the accolades, and I'll make sure I pass those on to Mark. Sometimes I think Mark didn't believe that he would come on and people would want to hear him talk or hear what he's got to say. And I knew as soon as I got him to come on the show, I knew that I believed that you guys would be able to appreciate, things he had to say or talk about. And some of the stuff he's done is just, living in Wyoming and doing the job he did, he's got a lot of stories, not to mention just places he worked getting till he got that job and some of the things he's done. But anyway, he'll be back. So everybody have a great rest of the weekend. I'm going to go watch some Little League baseball, and I might lay down on the couch for a while today and just, rest my booty. Just a shameless plug here from my daughter. If anybody ever wants to check out the Primrose Auction Company, I was going to try to pull up a link, and I got it right here. Copy link. Hey, look, they ship stuff. They've got some good stuff on sale right now. I mean, you never know. I don't know what people are into, but if you collect stuff or have glassware, maybe you've got a set that you've had most of your life and don't have a piece. You never know when it's going to show up there. But I find books there. I have found a lot of things, and my daughters have picked up some really cool stuff, antiques. Sometimes they go cheap. In fact, even when the price goes up, I think you're probably getting a deal. They just had a table. I don't know who made it, but it was a really beautiful old table, and the price on it was getting marching right on up the ladder. I think it probably went for a fair bit. I want to go back and look, see if I can see it. I think that auction ended last night. I wasn't going to bid on it. I was just watching it. Anyway, talking. I got to stop. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks for being here. We'll see you all again next week. The good Lord's willing and the creek don't rise. We'll be right back here. Same Mark and Tim channel. Same. That ain't how that goes. Same time, same channel. That's how it goes. Bye-bye.